On behalf of Chairwoman Nora Vargas, I will read the following statement. Chairwoman Vargas has recently been diagnosed with a medical condition that has created painful nodules and damaged her vocal cords, and has been advised by her medical professionals to rest her voice for the next few weeks in order to prevent surgery. Please be advised that today's meeting will, as always, be conducted in accordance with board policies and the published agenda. As such, Chairwoman Vargas will, consistent with her authorities, duties, and responsibilities, chair and preside over today's meeting. So while Chairwoman Vargas is unable to speak aloud, she still has and will use her voice by communicating in alternative ways. To do so, the Chairwoman has worked with county staff to facilitate today's meeting, including public comment, staff presentations, and board discussion. If and when the Chairwoman makes comments on items, her comments will be projected on the screen for all to read, and the clerk of the board will read the comments aloud. While today's meeting may seem atypical, many of our fellow San Diegans communicate non-audible and divergent ways every day, and our county values their voice, employment, and civic participation. Thank you for your attention and understanding. On behalf of Chairwoman Vargas, we will now call the May 22nd, 2024 Flood Control District meeting and we will now call the Board of Supervisors Land Use meeting, Flood Control District meeting, and Sanitation District meeting to order. On behalf of Chairwoman Vargas, I will now call the roll. Supervisor Anderson? Here. Supervisor Montgomery Stepp?
Here.
Supervisor Desmond? Here. Vice Chair Lawson-Remer? And Chairwoman Vargas is here. We will now proceed with non-agenda public communication. This is an opportunity for the public to address the board on subject matters within the board's jurisdiction, but not an item on today's agenda. The only action that the board may take is a referral to the Chief Administrative Officer. Friendly reminder, according to Rule 4A, members of the public that are non-English speaking and need interpretation assistance will get twice the allotted time for their comment, which is 4 minutes. And as a reminder, according to the board's rules and procedures, audience members shall not whistle, clap, stomp feet, or anything that disrupts the proceedings. To better facilitate the meeting, we will have 5 in-person speakers, 5 speakers via phone, and the rest of non-agenda public communication will be heard at the close of today's meeting. I will now call for the public speakers. We have 23 total requests to speak on matters not listed on the agenda, 10 in person, and 13 requesting to speak by phone. For those that have requested to speak via phone, if you could please dial into the conference line now using the instructions that were provided to you. We'll begin with the in-person speakers. As your name is called, please come forward and stand against the east wall under the murals until it is your turn to speak. You'll then have 2 minutes to address the board, and I'd like to invite forward the following individuals: Robert Gurman, JP, Michael Brando, Ashley, and Gilbert Chavez. You have 2 minutes to address the board, and if you could please begin by stating your name for the record.
Robert Gurman, good luck. We didn't know was the response from Supervisor Vargas's aide on May 13th after I informed her of my presentation supporting Cindy Chavez. The slides show what else you don't know. Gillespie's $1 million hangar homes blocking the FAA tower's view. Private jets, Ferraris, parties on the veranda at their airport built with FAA and Sandag public tax money, where they entertain politicians, county department heads, implementing new flight patterns, new training areas. You didn't know pilots and aviation businesses are some of the biggest donors to the Republican Party in San Diego. The pilots know they have to pay to play. In 2021, pilots from Gillespie were invited to fly at Miramar. Then after 1 month, the pilots stopped. Did the pilots realize Miramar was their future airport? Why would the pilots not want a new airport? MCAS would be a fishbowl with all to watch. Privacy is the advantage of the county's 8 small airports. The public doesn't need to know. They're not pilots. Nothing to see here. If Supervisor Cindy Chavez can ban leaded fuel at her 2 airports, beating the FAA, she could do anything here. The pilot status quo would be threatened. This is why Supervisor Vargas's offices, you weren't informed. No more cronyism. Please support Cindy Chavez, CAO. God, I got all kinds of time. Wow. Well, the airports are not community-based. They are for themselves. It is simple that. It is business, 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 and the elite's hobby. If they would, have they ever sponsored a parade? Have they ever sponsored, well, let me take that back. They did, I think, once in the 13 years that I've been involved with them, do a Toys for Tots with the Marines. Otherwise, nothing. They're not going to. Thank you.
Thank you. Go ahead with our next speaker.
Thank you. Let me just make sure this is set up properly. Right. And, okay. All right, can you, all right, well, I don't know if this is working, but let me just zoom in here.
Okay. I'm going to need to begin your time. So if you could state your name for the record, we'd
Sure.
greatly appreciate it. Thank you.
Yes, so my name is JP Theberge. I am presenting here on behalf of the communities of Elfin Forest, Harmony Grove, and Eden Valley. We have Ashley Robertson, Joe Rowley, who's an energy executive, Scott Sutherland, and Kendra Correa are also here. They're not all going to be able to speak, so I'm speaking on behalf of at least a couple of them. We're talking about the Seguro battery storage facility, which if you guys have been watching the news lately, you know what kinds of impacts battery storage facilities have on nearby residents. Otay actually is in an industrial area, so the fire that happened in Otay was shielded somewhat from residents about 2 miles away, and a correctional facility 1.5 miles away. The proposed project, which is the Seguro project, is in Eden Valley, and it's completely surrounded by homes on all sides and a hospital, which is 1,600 feet away. So the reason we're here is because we want the county to pay attention to the placement of these facilities. We don't oppose the facilities. We think it's important for our just energy transition to have facilities like this, but the county does not have any regulations in place currently. We have regulations for dog kennels and wineries and breweries and even for chinchillas, but we do not have regulations for these very risky projects that are going to impact communities all over the county because they are growing. So I'll just show you, this is the visual of where it is, so you can see kind of what it looks like. Let's see if I can zoom in. You can see that this is the facility. It's 23 acres. It has 217 containers. It's 8 times the size of the Otay facility in terms of power, and it's completely surrounded by hundreds of homes, and it shares a property line with dozens of homes around each property line. And it is, like I said, it's right next to the facility of the hospital. We would like the county to start looking into this and to reject this project until a more suitable location is found. Thank you very much for your time.
Go ahead and hear from our next speaker.
Good morning, I'm Ashley Robertson Bedard following JP's presentation. If you've been following the Otay Mesa battery energy storage fire, it has now been burning for 7 days. Essential personnel are planning for a 2 to 4 week burn time. They have taken 2 precautionary measures. One is they have established a 600-foot perimeter around the facility for safety. They have also implemented a 1.5 mile shelter-in-place order. If the Seguro project is installed in Escondido, what is going to happen? Evacuations of nearly 300 households, the city of Escondido Industrial Park and Desmond's District, as well as the preschool across the street. Shelter-in-place orders will also be implemented for Palomar Hospital. They will not be able to bring in any emergency vehicles. Life flight will have to be rerouted. 5 preschools will also have to be under shelter-in-place orders, as well as an additional 1,200 households, many who have large livestock, domestic animals. There is a dog kennel there as well, and the 78 will have to be shut down between the 15 corridor and Woodland Parkway. We are vehemently opposed to this project site. We have currently gathered nearly 3,000 signatures. The media is paying close attention to this project, and as JP asked, we are asking the county to seriously consider restricting these from being installed in residential areas and to set guidelines and requirements that are going to keep our firefighters safe, as well as our residents, animals, and especially our children and the hospital. Thank you.
Thank you. Hear from our next speaker.
Good morning, board members. My name is Gilbert Chavez. I'm here representing Spring Valley Coalition 2024. I'm just a neighborhood guy. I live in this neighborhood. I've lived there for 45 years. Just recently, I was told that they're going to put 150 small homes in an area next to Calton Street. where there are 2 other schools, 4 daycare centers, a halfway house, and a freeway that has 2 off-ramps and 2 on-ramps within 500 feet. We have a shopping center across the street where the homeless goes back and forth constantly. And now they're telling us they're going to put these homes out there and possibly put 300 people in this little area. I'm not opposed to helping the homeless. I think we have ideas. I think we have support. The community wants to help. We've dealt with these people along. We know half of them. We want to help this situation, but we don't want to be put in this particular spot. And I know that sounds like not in my neighborhood, but that's exactly what it is. It's right next to a fence, next to a house. It's right next to a school. It's right next to a daycare center. Why can't they put this in a place that's really favorable to the people that need to get the help? Now they want to put them in these little small homes. That doesn't solve the problem. The problem is they have drug addiction. They have alcohol. They have mental health. Put them overnight doesn't solve that problem. Let's solve the problem and then put them in a nice house, in a place where they could be controlled. And again, the community is behind doing a lot for the homeless. We want to be part of this solution. We don't want to be against it. Thank you very much.
Michael.
And we got dying horses for a whole year without any punishment, while Craig's making thousands off of racing them. And even when Craig and Deborah both allegedly pointed guns at people. But why? It's because Craig has kingly technologies that provide in the Gulf Fisheries consulate water for the unpure water project for the city and the county. Here's the abused horse timeline. March 5th, 2023, the county went to Network's property because the horse died stuck in mud. March 12th, the horse Gila placed first in a race. March 17th, the county visited the property at least 10 times and refused to say whether any horse specialists responded. March 25th, horse Thunder run placed first in a race. March 31st, Craig allegedly pointed a gun at a CBS 8 news crew. The neighbor said she called BOS and Animal Service. April 1st, deputy said Craig was holding a gun. April 6th, the county went to the property. April 8th, horse Gila placed 8th in a race. April 18th, Deborah and Craig super wild dogs. They paid over $19,000 in fees. April 30th, horse Thunder run placed 6th in a race. May 1st, a neighbor said Deborah pulled a gun on him when he returned a couple of dogs to her house. May 21st, county public safety group asked Westerheide, and it appeared unlikely that officials would be removing the animals or working to get voluntary compliance unless there's a life-threatening situation for the animal. April 20th, more than a dozen horses allegedly being neglected at a Network property in Escondido. December 23rd, horse Gila placed 6th in a race. January 25th, 2024, DA's confirmed dead horse. DA's office said it's investigating. Animal Services Director Kelly Campbell refuses interviews, and a new director is being recruited. January 30th, another horse dies. County is still investigating, and we got dying horses for a whole year without any punishment, while Craig's making thousands off of racing them. And even when Craig and Deborah both allegedly pointed guns at people. But why? It's because Craig has kingly technologies that provide in the Gulf Fisheries consulate water for the unpure water project for the city and the county. That recycled soil water would mean government wouldn't have to invest in repairs and dams to hold real water. To receive money lost, a company like King Lee wasn't protected. What other reason is there that the county wouldn't pursue immediate seizure of dying animals?
Del Mar, Solana Beach, Artesian Road, Cielo, Rancho Santa Fe, 4 homes these people own worth over $11 million, and they can't care for their horses. Davia, behind the mask, what's going on?
Thank you. We will now hear from those that have requested to speak by phone. Again, we'll be hearing from the first 5 callers. Remaining callers will be heard at the conclusion of today's session. When it is your turn to speak, you'll be unmuted. Then you'll hear a recording that will tell you to begin your comments after the beep. I'd like to remind the callers they should mute their TV or live video stream before they begin speaking, and we'll begin with our first caller.
From Swallow. So it's always apparent to hear these meetings and see the people who are truly not paying attention. So these lithium bomb sites are in fact going up everywhere. Perhaps that's why State Farm is dropping their freaking customers and their loyal clients and their policies. Perhaps that's why. But people aren't paying attention. They're not seeing what's happening at these meetings. They just show up when the problem arises. Instead of holding these people accountable, paying attention to what they keep doing under our noses. And yeah, but it's okay, because that's the design, that's the setup. The Padres are playing, or this Super Bowl's on, or something else. People got to wake up, pay attention to what they're doing. They have, I mean, the fact that somebody says, like, since we're going to be transitioning to lithium, no, lithium's not the answer, man. Wake the freak up, dude. It's all about control. They don't give a shit about the people. They don't care about the homeless. Everything's lucrative. They're just doing their job, and they don't work for the people. Y'all are there to beg and to plead to people who are just freaking puppets. Wake up, unplug your TVs, get involved. It's really, truly that dire. But people are so under a freaking spell, they have no clue. Get involved. It's not going to get any better. It's not. I'm sorry, but it's not. So until people wake up and stop playing this into their political divide and their distractions, nothing's going to change. And it's going to get worse. And then you're going to wonder, like, what happened? They move incrementally. That's what happened. And people don't get it. So the next election, guess what? We all lose.
Thank you. Your time is up. We'll go to our next speaker.
Bold. After just about every natural disaster now, we hear the climate change people crying out how things would be different without man-made climate change. However, this is getting out of hand. As many have pointed out, the climate, it's due to natural conditions such as Earth's temperature, water availability, geography, magnetism, rotation speed, and so on. They change over the centuries. See my letter about ozone and PFCs and now plastics and the junk coming from battery storage facilities burning up. All this needs to be factored in before yelling climate change. And according to the National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration, wildfires actually have the lowest confidence among natural disasters that researchers attribute to climate change. However, one thing the fires do emphasize is the danger of putting high-density housing in high-risk fire areas, as San Diego City and County and San Diego, although it's not an urban planning agency, although they want to do. Also, Consuelo mentioned that as soon as the program is successful, you take away the funding. The perfect example is you're taking away $1.8 million from the DA's budget. And do you need a big reserve in the general fund? Yes, you do. So please put it there. Do things for the people. You know, if something happens like flooding or Palomar Hospital closing because of toxic fumes from battery storage facility fires.
Thank you. Your time is up. We'll go to our next caller.
Hey, it's Jim. You know, at these meetings, the people bring to you these topics. Agenda 21, Agenda 2030, the UN agenda, voter fraud, geoengineering, chemtrails, treasonous World Economic Forum, border invasion, human trafficking at the open border, child trafficking, 5-year-olds being raped. For the latter, citizens Audra and Luke are on the street daily broadcasting precisely the nefarious activity happening there. And there is no response. Apparently there is no interest. You show no interest. You show no interest. Children being trafficked and no interest. Even if you think these citizens are wrong, are they not your constituents who should at least be listened to? They even have hands-on experience they can share. Is there interest? Is it too much trouble to look at? Scary? Too painful? Or are you supporting some hidden agenda? Your lack of attention and response brings a vote of no confidence and an erosion of trust. And for this, you all will be held complicit. And by the way, 2 days in a row, you are late to the meeting. 6 minutes yesterday, 11 minutes today. And remember the consequence. Yes. 10 push-ups, per minute. That is 170 push-ups. You all owe us. Accountability for all. And we're all watching.
Thank you. We'll go to our next speaker.
Good morning, Board of Supervisors. My name is Terry Ann Skelly. I'm a parent, a planning group attendee, and a community volunteer in youth programs, especially mentoring programs. Thank you, Board of Supervisors, for your priorities around mental health responses, which is a personal and volunteer interest of mine. Yesterday, I spoke about the challenges of our young people who are confronted by marijuana businesses' predatory and persuasive advertising firepower. I shared the quotes from newsletters that the Big Marijuana sends out to local and statewide marijuana businesses about how these businesses could best reach our young people, especially the warnings to utilize, and I quote, Instagram and TikTok, those aged 5 to 35 reaching 60% and 70% of the market. As a recent marijuana industry newsletter said, and I quote again, although social media isn't the only option for marijuana marketing, it is by far one of the most effective, end quote. Another industry newsletter says, and I quote, TikTok is a fantastic way for cannabis companies to connect with their young audience, end quote. We know that the county's marijuana storefronts are very active on these teens' communication tools. MedPage Today, an online media, on Friday quoted from a national longitudinal study, and I quote, social media greatly increases young people's susceptibility to addictive behaviors like smoking and vaping of tobacco or marijuana, end quote. I think it is important to recognize that there are an unknown number of deliveries zooming around the back county. Therefore, it is not wise to add to the 5 marijuana businesses already in the county, influencing our young people. Thank you for hearing my concerns this morning.
Thank you. We'll go to our next speaker.
Kevin Stevenson. First, I think we should include a disclaimer after Paul's climate denialism that his ramblings are sponsored by Chevron and ExxonMobil, because that's the kind of convenient propaganda that would benefit giant corporations that keep gutting our planet and making man-made climate change. You can say that, yes, temperatures have been changing throughout the history of the planet, but the rate of change since the Industrial Revolution is pretty relevant, because over the last, it started under the Industrial Revolution, but it's especially skyrocketed within the last 50 years. The rate of global warming has been increasing exponentially. That is not natural. That is man-made. And you have essentially 100 corporations in the entire world to thank for 70% of our carbon emissions. So that's one thing. For another thing, I would like to apologize that I was not able to speak on behalf of item 19 for the Truth Act yesterday, but I did watch some of what happened, and I'd just like to say that the BS that goes on with Audra and her gang trying to attack people who want accountability and who want the sheriff's office to be on the level, it's virtue signaling. I don't get why people feel the need to make a show and accuse people of this and accuse people of that. You know, I mean, I hope you guys are getting paid good money for this. I mean, because you claim that you're doing hard-hitting journalism about trafficking.
Your time is, thank you, your time is up. And just as a friendly reminder for those in the audience, Rule 4F, no person in the audience at the board meeting shall engage in conduct that disrupts the orderly conduct of any meeting, including but not limited to the utterance of loud or threatening language, whistling, clapping, stamping of feet, speaking over or interrupting the recognized speaker, repeating, waving of arms or other disruptive acts. With that being noted, Chairwoman Vargas, that concludes the request for non-agenda public communication this morning. The next item on the agenda is the approval of the minute statements of proceedings from the regular meeting of May 1st, 2024 and the flood control district meetings of May 1st, 2024. Is there a motion to approve these items?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
All right, thank you. We have a motion by Supervisor Anderson, a second by Supervisor Desmond. Please vote. And Chairwoman Vargas, that motion passes unanimously with all supervisors who are present and voting aye. We will now proceed with the formation of our consent calendar, items 1 through 3, flood control district item 1, and sanitation district items 1 and 2. Members of the public will be able to comment on the consent calendar after the supervisors pull the items they would like for discussion. On behalf of Chairwoman Vargas, would any of her colleagues like to pull any items for discussion? Supervisor Montgomery Stepp?
Nothing to pull. I'll move the consent agenda.
Supervisor Desmond?
Nothing to pull, no comments, and I'll second the motion.
Supervisor Anderson?
Not this time, thank you.
And Chairwoman Vargas does not have any remarks. With that being said, we will now turn to public comment. As a reminder for the members of the public, please keep your comments related to the items on the consent calendar, and I'll now call the speakers forward. We have 7 total requests to speak on items on the consent calendar, 1 individual in person, and 6 requesting to speak by phone. For any members of the public that have requested to speak on items on the consent calendar, if you could please dial into the conference line now using the instructions that were given to you. I'd like to invite forward Gambler. You'll have 2 minutes to address the board. Not seeing any movement in the chamber, we'll go ahead and move to our phone callers. We'll now hear from those that have requested to speak by phone. When it is your turn to speak, you'll be unmuted and you'll hear a recording that will tell you to begin your comments after the beep. I'd like to remind the callers they should mute their TV or live video stream before they begin speaking, and we'll go ahead and begin with our first caller.
I missed it, so.
All about Kevin, you're all wet. Water monitoring. I do not like it that the actual resolution says that it further resolves an order that any elections taken by the Department of Environmental Health and Quality shall be hereby are ratified and approved and confirmed. This is asking for someone who's not elected and may not be representing our best interests to act for us. It is asking for trouble and is asking for the beaches to be closed even longer than the 2+ years some of them have. And the latest list includes beaches in San Diego Bay, Mission Bay, and even in North County. FOO1, continuation of the storm drains. Aren't the contractors done yet? I mean, how long will we keep paying them more money? I do not see adequate justification. 3, community development. These projects are to build new sidewalks where there are none, and obviously improve pedestrian safety and provide better disability aids. Projects are necessary and good for the communities involved. I wish these block grants were not equity-based, that is just for lower incomes, which is a scam on our tax dollars. The government should be concerned about public safety for everyone. The water purification. Judging from the supposedly purified water I drink, including at several water board meetings, it's all a bunch of crap. Kevin, you're all wet. The main disclosure then should be that this water has a lot of junk and crap in it, and may be hazardous if drunk in large quantities.
Thank you. Your time is up. We'll go to our next caller.
Sure
Item 1, $776,000 to test beach waters. The State Water Resources Board demands these tests in exchange for taxpayer money. But is this necessary when we already know that any waters near the southern border are subject to sewage contamination? Other than that, there's nothing to fear in the water other than Jaws. Item 2, with the federal government's United States Fish and Wildlife Service, there are over 11 different jurisdictions that are entangled in the agenda to pretend to protect the environment, but are actually engaged in government land grabbing. Just like this item says, quote, the county is ahead of its acquisition goals, end quote. So it's no surprise that county staff has decided that their South Bay multiple species conservation plan requires 98,000 acres of land to be taken from people's use, to only allow limited passive recreation with $235 million of our money just for this plan alone. Most of the 85 covered species aren't even endangered. Item SCO1, there was no unprecedented, extremely rare storm event like the lie in this item says. There was an unprecedented, extremely common government negligence event when they didn't maintain the storm infrastructure. That's why it's over $6 million to fix 9 storm drains. Item SO2, no to toxic toilet to tap, unpure water for Alpine Lakeside, Winter Gardens, El Cajon, and Santee from the $950 million East County Advanced Water Purification Project. It's in partnership with the city of San Diego because both the county and the city are looking to save big on not fixing the dam infrastructure. And will the water treatment chemicals be bought from Craig Netwig's King Lee Technologies, which has locations in Bahrain, Canada, Chile, 2 in China, 3 in Hong Kong, Egypt, El Salvador, India, Nairobi, Israel, 2 in Mexico, Pakistan, Philippines, Saudi Arabia, Singapore, UAE, Vietnam, and here in San Diego.
I know, we never get to say the stuff that's really going on. We just sit here and have theater all day. I know, we never get to say the stuff.
Thank you. Your time is up. We'll go to our next speaker.
First off, I wanted to address what that thing said regarding Paul rambling. First off thing, do you get that this is somebody who calls in and is disabled? Do you get that you just put somebody down who does everything that he can and works his ass off? And no, we're not getting paid, you schmuck. We don't have a radio show like you or whatever it is you do. I don't even know what you do. I've just heard. I don't even care or to bother to look up the shit that you're into because I don't care. But you don't show your face, and that's so funny. That's so funny. You're so bold and big, and I've seen your face, and quite frankly, thank you for not showing up. But you know what? You just stay in your lane. Stay in your lane, fat boy. Yeah. Anyways, so what I wanted to say about this, this is more, actually, no, I didn't want to really even talk about this. I just wanted to address that thing that thought he could put somebody else down for trying and doing what he can for the future of fucking humanity. Show up.
Thank you. Thank you. We'll go to our next caller. And just for a reminder to the public, please stay on topic when we're on the consent calendar. You need to address the consent calendar.
Rules for thee, not for me.
All right, Justin, on behalf of the chairwoman, that is your first warning for disrupting the meeting.
Well, I had to call in several times because you guys keep hanging up on me saying I already spoke. It's a bit ridiculous what's happening. It happens a lot when I call in. I don't understand why you guys think that you can just, keep people speaking. And I'm wondering if Kevin is a pedophile since he likes to condone the rape of 5-year-old children. Anyway, with this water testing, of course, we want to make sure that the water is of good quality. But again, when you're having sewage brought into it, it's not going to be. But this is also a good way for you to keep people off the beaches, even if there was no problem. And when you want to have all these multi-species conservation land acquisitions, which you're basically taking the land of the people and you're not even preserving any kind of species, you can't even protect people in the community. you can't make sure that they have what they need. And we think, and then you're going to spend $235 million to pretend to protect 85 species. It's a joke. And these they become landfills, basically. So, I mean, you're just doing it to put everybody in a densely populated area because you need to take up all the other land that's out there. And with the storm drains, it's man-made weather warfare, Kevin, as well. It's man-made weather modification that is happening that's causing storms. I mean, look at what happened in Dubai even. They admit it. It's crazy because no one will admit it's going on, but other countries and other states admit it. But you guys seem to not want to because it doesn't fit into your climate god agenda. And you wouldn't be able to push all of this BS and put things like lithium bombs that are bringing hell a fire on Earth, and we've been telling you about it forever, but you think that's going to be better for the planet. And it's like everything you guys do is upside down, just like the poo water that you want to give people. And it's like we could drill, oil and water are abundant in the Earth. You can drill for water like you do for oil, and it comes up abundantly. We wouldn't have to give people back their own sewage, saying that it's pure water, and then putting a bunch of toxic chemicals and poison in it, just to give it back to the people. You don't want to buy it or...
Thank you. Your time is up. And Chairman Vargas, that concludes public comment on the items on the consent calendar. We have a motion by Supervisor Montgomery Stepp, second by Supervisor Desmond. Please vote. And Chairman Vargas, that motion passes unanimously with all supervisors who are present voting aye. All right, we will now hear discussion items 4, 5, and 6 concurrently. These items will discuss the second consideration and adoption of ordinance cost recovery proposal to adopt ordinances related to fees in the Department of Agricultural Weights and Measures, the Department of Environmental Health and Quality, and Land Development, effective fiscal year 2024 to 2025, and CEQA exemption. I will now call the public speakers forward. We have 5 total requests to speak, all come in via phone. For any of the members that requested to speak on this item via phone, if you could please dial into the conference line now using the instructions that were provided to you, and we will give you a moment to do so.
And you told me the different group of numbers. You said 1, 2, and 3 flood, and I said, is this correct? What numbers are we up there right now? It's not. So we can't talk.
We will now hear from those that request to speak by phone. When it is your turn to speak, you'll be unmuted and you'll hear a recording to tell you to begin your comments after the beep. Again, to remind the callers they should mute their TV or live video stream before they begin speaking. And our caller just dropped off. Looks like he's calling back.
I asked you what the next item was. I asked what the next item was because I missed the last one and I wanted to make a comment. She lied to me and we're going with a different one. Are you going to let me put one into this?
Okay, so we will now go to our caller. Sorry for the delay. We had to wait for them to call in.
Well, the worst is the fees in the Department of Environmental Health, item 5. Many of these fees are being raised over 30%, some amounting to over $100. This is way beyond what the people you represent should pay. Whatever the excuse you make, the board letter says the average is an overinflation 7.6%. From the pool plan and wastewater treatment system review fee increases look pretty steep. Well, these look steep too. Is this to discourage backcountry residents who may not be able to deal with 30% fee increase? Not sure why biotechnology facilities and research and development laboratories have no permit fees given the havoc they can cause. That is like the COVID generation and response and the waste, health, and environmental damage they can cause. such as battery storage facility fires, by the way, that kind of thing. And $241 per hour for a bacteriologist, that's ridiculous. I think the fee schedule needs to be revised. Fees in the Department of Agriculture, Weights and Measures, the fee increases look good, all but for under 5%. And fees and deposits and land development, lots of fees under cost of living. That's excellent. And I think that's about it. Yeah, you need to revise the ordinance for the Department of Environmental Health. Stress on the mental, by the way.
Thank you. Your time is up. We'll go to our next speaker.
What about coffee? There was this interrupt.
Kathleen, it is your turn. If you could mute your audio in the back and begin your comments.
What they do.
We'll come back to you.
It'll be interesting to see if you ever quit raising fees pretending that you're going to provide some kind of service and you need these fees to provide a service. Just like we raise taxes to make up for doing the work, to do the work that you don't do, that you were supposed to do. It's like, no, if we bring forward more taxes, these people will think that we're going to actually provide what we need to for them. You don't. And like even talking about environmental health, it's like, what? I mean, or even providing resilient food supply. The idea is not to do that. That's why they're going after farmers, especially like CARB, acting like, you know, if you have cows or whatever, you're killing the planet. I mean, it's like a way to demonize all this stuff. You actually don't make anything better. You make it worse because you come down hard on all of the things just like the United Nations wants you to. So you're doing a really good job of implementing their whole plan. But anytime you have your hands in pretending to make something better, all people have to do is look at, like, say, the lithium bomb fire that's going on. Isn't that supposed to save the planet? Oh, my gosh. And it's not going to bring hell on earth, right? And then, like, you know, just to save people, we're going to give them a bioweapon and make sure that it destroys their immune system. But it's going to make it better, right? You guys touch stuff and it turns to ash. It's really sad to think, and then you just want us to pay more and more money to do all of these things. And it's like nothing ever gets better. I mean, it'd be great if it did because we spend so much money for it to be destroyed. It's nuts. Oh, my gosh. And then we just have people totally ignoring, like, what actually happens, just like the border, right? That's not an invasion. Our border is secure. That's what you guys say. And 5-year-olds can be raped, and it's all right. That is so disturbing. So disturbing. You guys are going to reap what you have sown. You will. And that little girl deserves justice. So sad to think that nobody frickin' cares. No one.
Time is up. We'll go to our next caller.
Truth, item 6, Planning and Development Services, Department of Works and the Department of Parks and Rec, quote, work in communities in the unincorporated area. This includes issuing residential solar photovoltaic permits, reducing dependence on fossil fuels, end quote. I found it ironic since the only way county workers are getting to the unincorporated areas is definitely by car. So I think they should be required to walk or bike. It save a lot of money on gas and cars and will protect the environment from toxic lithium battery fires. The county's wasting taxpayer money on those dangerous fire-prone electric cars. And so the fees should not be waived for the Green Building Incentive Program either. We shouldn't be incentivizing any type of infrastructure that results in toxic and combustible lithium battery fires like what's happening at the Otay Mesa facility. This item says the proposed average hourly rate change is a 9.7% increase. That's a lot more than the inflationary rate. It also says these increases for all these departments includes costs for salary and benefits, including increases due to labor agreements. You see, those purple shirts and red shirts do nothing good for the county when they keep costing us more and more money. And then if you don't give it to them, they say you like the status quo or that you turned your back on labor. These people operate like a mafia. If you don't pay them protection fees that get funneled to political campaigns, then there's a problem. Then if you don't install their minions, they try to take you out. No more PLAs and other negotiations that amount to extortion. Item 4, the Department of Agriculture Weights and Measures oversees fees related to hazardous materials inventory and the pesticide regulation program. So it almost sounds like they could be overseeing the Department of Environmental Health and Quality and their vector control program that sprays potentially carcinogenic, yet allegedly not harmful, larvicide all over the county. This item says AWM services and supplies are discretionary. Who's overseeing that? Are there ever audits on that spending? And DHQ, item 5, they say they're going to save money.
Thank you. Your time is up. We'll go to our next speaker.
Yeah, amen to everything Truth just mentioned. Yep, item 6, there was, a whopping 59% increase. Increases, fees. Oh my gosh. This is so, I'm just reading through this. It's disgusting. It's sad. And as I mentioned before, and I'll say it again, people aren't paying attention because we don't benefit, the government benefits. And it's just a front, a racket. Yep, big old mafia. What else do I have to say? Let's see. 100. Yeah, people should never, the people that you represent shouldn't be paying that. That sucks. Well, let's see. That's all I have.
All right, thank you. We'll go to our next caller.
Yeah. Come on.
Hi, Kathleen. It's your turn again. If you'd like to unmute yourself, begin your comments. All right, Chairwoman, seeing the non-responsiveness from Kathleen, we'll go back. That concludes the public comment via the phone, so we'll go back to our in-person and call Justin Ford. You'll have 2 minutes to address the board.
I put in gambler. I don't like you.
You are correct. You are correct. You did put in gambler.
So why are you going ahead and pointing that out?
You'll have
why
2
do
minutes to
you?
address
I mentioned myself when I come in here. I am gambler. I do not like the disrespect that you guys show me constantly.
On behalf of Chairwoman Vargas, that's your second warning for disrupting the meeting.
You want to keep on opposing fees and then redirect those funds to other sections. You keep on adding more funds. And the only thing that allows you to do this is the fact that you have groups. Like the group up in Escondido, apparently, that homeless encampment that people are getting registered to vote in, and all their signatures most likely look identical. And that is the only reason why you're able to push these stupid agendas that no one likes. Keep in mind, this is the people's office. And I am on topic, so don't even give that shit, Nora. I understand that you don't like me, but that is no fucking excuse on treating me in any certain way. DEI, bitches. Keep that in consideration. Treat everyone fucking equally, even if you don't like them. Kiss my ass.
Gambler, on behalf of Chairwoman Vargas, that is your third warning for disrupting the meeting. You're ordered to leave the meeting. Will the sheriff deputies please remove the disruptive speaker? And Chairwoman Vargas, that concludes public comment on this item. Is there, on behalf of Chairwoman Vargas, do any of her colleagues have any comments? Not seeing any. Not seeing any. Is there a motion? Chairwoman Vargas is indicating she will make the motion. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Thank you. We have a motion by Chairwoman Vargas, a second by Supervisor Montgomery Stepp. Please vote. And Chairwoman Vargas, that motion passes unanimously with all supervisors being present voting aye. We will now move on to discussion item 7, notice public hearing, Mount Olympus County Preserve, approve acquisition of approximately 220 acres of open space land and related to CEQA exemption. We'll now call the public speakers forward. We have 5 requests to speak, all coming via phone. For any members of the public that requested to speak on this item by phone, if you could please dial into the conference line now using the instructions that were provided to you, and we'll give you a moment to do so. Again, we're taking public comment on item 7. All comments are coming via phone, so if you would like to call in and make your comments, please do so now. We'll give you a little bit more time to do so, or we'll be moving on. Thank you. All right, we'll go ahead and begin with our caller. First caller.
Truth, the Department of Parks and Rec enhancing the quality of life in San Diego County. A core aspect of DPR's conservation program is the acquisition of open space lands that support sensitive species and habitats. In the quote, how does protecting environments for dangerous mountain lions help people or their pets? That's what the sign claims to protect mountain lions. Why do mountain lions get all the land? Why are they being encouraged? Why am I being encouraged? Why are they being encouraged to terrorize neighborhoods? And how does taking land away from the public's ability to build homes help the alleged housing crisis? This is a total of 1,400 acres of land in Palo Palma being scooped up by county government. And that's all the federal government's multiple species conservation program is about. Taking land using the excuse of conserving species, and yet most of the species covered are not even endangered. But one of the excuses the county uses to justify this program is that there are benefits to water and air quality. If that's true, where's the natural spring water offered by these lands? Why are the people offered only toxic toilet to tap water to drink? Why are we being told the earth is going to die? Why are we being told we don't have clean water all of a sudden? People are driving to these parks, so those invisible killer GHGs are going to go up because of county parks. This is at least the second property that the Maritzky Trust has sold to the county. How much land do they own? Or are they actually just a front for the county to buy land? By the way, the owners of Maritzky Trust are making $1.2 million in taxpayer money just on this sale. And it will cost the people another $440,000 in closing costs, plus over $67,000 a year to manage this property. Will there ever be a limit on how many acres the county is planning on buying? Or how many millions or billions are going to be spent on buying land? And some of that money is going to vector control, which means spraying toxic poisons onto the land and destroying the environment, negating one of the excuses used to buy the land in the first place. All political theater.
Thank you. Your time is up. We'll go to our next speaker.
Amazing. Yes, political theater. I got my popcorn right here. It's just so sad. Yeah, again, everything, these land grabs, go to the government. People don't see it right under their noses. UN Agenda 21, it's right there. This is all it's about. And you guys are helping and facilitate everything happening. And it's really sad that the public just doesn't, they will one day. They will. And, yeah, it's just a matter of time. That's all I got.
Thank you. We'll go to our next caller.
crazy when you guys literally just want to, take up all this space. And, I think, I don't understand why humans aren't on that, endangered species list, because you guys are coming after us hot. And, we're the ones that are, being threatened by all of the things that you're doing. I mean, you can't even build homes for people, but yet you'll take all this space to pretend to give us better air quality. But then you're going to put us in densely populated areas that are going to emit more GHGs, but I don't know. We got our vehicle miles travel tax coming, so it's like we can stifle their movement, right, and get them out of their cars. But it doesn't make sense to me when you have all these people in one area. It's just like New York, and thinking that you're going to have good air quality there because you have the open space way far away. Everything you guys do is upside down and inside out, and it has nothing to do with what you say. It's all about total control of all resources, the people, any and everything that you can, so that you can control our movement, so that you can, sit there and try and puppet the people around, give them poop to drink. I mean, it's absurd that you guys sit here and virtue signal like what you're doing is actually going to save the planet, because you're killing the people in the process, and you're destroying the planet in the process of what you're attempting to pretend to do. And people believe it, and they buy it, and it's so sad because they don't see that you're coming after them. They're actually delusional about that fact because they trust the lies that come out of your mouth. And it's sad to see how many people do. And one day they're going to get it, like Consuelo said. So it's like, we're just waiting on that time, because it's sad to see that we're paying for our own enslavement. And, people thank you for enslaving them. They thank you for it. And then they beg you to help them, and you don't even do it.
Thank you. Your time is up. We'll go to our next speaker.
Paul LeBold, glad to speak. Now, here's a pretty good land deal on this Mount Olympus Preserve. A lot better than the $8,000 per acre you're paying for the place in Vista. But at Mount Olympus, for now, I think we can do better than making the whole 220 acres a nature preserve. Maybe devote half the land to a homeless camp or mini homes with supporting facilities. Hire the homeless, maybe to police the trash and litter, but some can do a lot more. So, please buy the stuff and, develop the whole thing. I mean, it doesn't really make sense just to make a little tiny nature preserve. I mean, come on. And by the way, people are catching on to what you guys are doing, by the way. I mean, I've been to a lot of meetings, and even board members are starting to speak up. So, anyway, there's hope. Thank you.
Thank you. And Chairwoman Vargas, that concludes public comment on this item. On behalf of Chairwoman Vargas, do any of your colleagues have comments?
Move to approve.
Second. Thank you. We have a motion by Supervisor Desmond, a second by Supervisor Anderson. Please vote. And Chairwoman Vargas, that motion passes unanimously with all supervisors who are present and voting aye. We will now move on to discussion item 8. Notice public hearing, updates to fire safety guidelines and standards during environmental review in the unincorporated areas, and finding these updates are not subject to CEQA. We will now hand it over to our county team for a presentation.
Good morning, Chairwoman Vargas and Supervisors. I'm Angelica Trong with Planning Development Services. Today, I will be presenting on item number 8, the updates to the fire safety guidelines and standards during environmental review in an unincorporated region. The department is before you today recommending adoption of the updated fire guidelines. The update to the fire guidelines is a board-directed effort to address wildfire issues and concerns related to development within fire hazard severity zones in unincorporated areas of the county. The updated fire guidelines will ensure that new projects located in the unincorporated area and within state-designated high and very high fire hazard severity zones go through additional analysis and implement mitigation to reduce impacts from wildfire. The board directed a three-phase approach to update the fire guidelines. The board approved the first phase on January 25, 2023, which clarified that a fire protection plan is required for projects located within fire zones. Today, the board will consider the second phase, which includes a comprehensive update to the fire guidelines to update all the requirements, including water supply, access, field modification, and construction standards. The comprehensive update would bring the fire guidelines up to current standards and incorporate changes to the fire code, but would not include any requirements related to evacuation. Phase 3 will address evacuation requirements for new development projects and include standards for road capacity, roadside field modification, and intersection controls. Staff will return to the board next year with an update on Phase 3 and provide options for the board's consideration. The fire guidelines were originally adopted by Planning and Development Services on March 19, 2007. The fire guidelines assist staff, development project applicants, and the public in understanding whether a proposed development project would create significant risks associated with wildfire because of its location, design, or other factors. The fire guidelines aid in the review of discretionary projects and associated environmental documents to determine whether a project may have a significant effect related to wildfire. These guidelines also establish standards to reduce the risk of development projects exposing people or structures to a significant risk of loss, injury, or death involving wildland fires. The fire guidelines do not propose any development, changes to development regulations, or changes to the fire severity maps that are prepared and adopted by the state. The Phase 2 updates have been prepared based on board direction and include the following: addressing the requirements of the California Environmental Quality Act related to fire safety, incorporating current state and county regulations and standards, evaluating and updating fire access road, field modification, water supply, and construction state and county standards, incorporating best practices where feasible, discussion of fire hazard severity zones and mapping, and evaluating and recommending fire modeling software for developers and consultants, and considering pre-identified weather inputs for modeling. Implementing these guidelines will assist the county in reducing a new neighborhood's vulnerability to wildfire and establishing resilient communities. For example, mitigation may include incorporating building separation or setback requirements to reduce the potential for ignition. The updated fire guidelines have also been condensed and synthesized into more accessible language. New state regulations, requirements, and county guidance documents have been incorporated into the update with updated links. As part of the preparation for the updated fire guidelines, staff held meetings with and sought input from community planning and sponsor groups, environmental stakeholders, business and industrial groups, labor organizations, and non-governmental organizations. The fire guidelines were circulated for a 30-day public review from January 11th to February 10th, 2024. Staff received 10 letters, primarily requesting clarifications or recommending language updates. The letters also raised concern regarding evacuation procedures and limiting development in the fire zones. Staff provided written responses to the public comment letters received and shared that evacuation procedures will be addressed in Phase 3 of the fire guidelines update, and that the fire guidelines do not limit or prohibit development. Development is regulated by the county's general plan, and the purpose of this effort is to update the county's fire guidelines and ensure new development implements all necessary measures to reduce the risk of wildlife. On March 22, 2024, the Planning Commission considered staff's recommendation to adopt the fire guidelines and recommended approval of staff's recommendation to the board by a vote of 4-0 with 2 commissioners absent. Separate from the fire guidelines, the Planning Commission also requested staff to assess field management practices within open space and undeveloped properties. Based on staff's review, field management in open space and undeveloped properties would require changes to the fire code, which would need to be accompanied by an environmental review consisting of an environmental impact report. This code change and environmental analysis would also need approval from the board and allocation of funding. In addition, this type of field management would pose significant challenges to implement due to open space land being set aside for mitigation, property owner opposition, environmental constraints, and permitting for impacts to endangered and threatened species. As a result, this request is not included in staff's recommendation and is outside the scope of the project. Staff are not recommending the board to approve the Planning Commission's request regarding the field management requirements within open space and undeveloped properties. Planning and Development Services recommends the board finds that the adoption of the fire guidelines is exempt from CEQA and adopt the updates to the county's CEQA wildfire and fire protection guidelines. Thank you, and this concludes our presentation, and we're available for questions.
Thank you. We will now call the public speakers forward. We have 8 total requests to speak, 2 individuals in person and 6 requesting to speak by phone. For any members of the public that have requested to speak on this item by phone, please dial into the conference line now using the instructions that were provided to you. Begin with the in-person speakers. As your name is called, please come forward and stand against the east wall under the murals until it's your turn to speak. I'd like to invite forward Michael Brando and JP. You have 2 minutes to address the board, and if you could please begin by stating your name for the record.
Hello, board. Thank you so much for letting us speak. My name is JP Theberge. I am the vice chair of the Elfin Forest Harmony Grove Town Council. We provided quite a bit of input into these guidelines, and they're looking really good. We appreciate the county's efforts to take into the consideration of the very high fire severity communities that we have around us. I do disagree with the Planning Commission's one of their input, which is fire management in open space and undeveloped properties. Vegetation management should be limited to structures. 100-foot the open space, defensible space as it's called, is scientifically proven. It makes sense. Anything beyond 100 feet is not scientifically proven. It's sort of best guess. Vegetation management, when you don't have a structure nearby, basically creates non-native grasses which catch fire. And then bare ground, even if it's bare ground, accelerates fire brands. So it actually speeds the move of fire. So we disagree with that. Then the other thing that we have some concerns about is the language regarding variances. Variances should, right now I think it's stated in terms of something with the same practical effect. Well, that's a very subjective language, and we were hoping that we could see something more based on substantial findings. So if a developer has to get a variance to, let's say, secondary egress or any other type of variance that the fire department wants to give, it would be great if that were substantiated through substantial findings, not just based on some discretionary decision. It's really important because secondary egress is really important for communities like ours, and there are developers that have chosen to not put in secondary egress, and they've been litigated. We've settled with another developer, and they did add the secondary egress as we requested. So we are open to these projects, but we want to make sure that they stay safe. Thank you.
Michael, I'm going to address some omissions regarding this item. Whenever I hear the phrase scientifically proven, I bristle, because a lot of what's called scientifically proven is actually falsehoods that is designed to actually make money. Now, I'm not doubting, some of the specifics in your presentation, but the omissions are things that aren't talked about. And isn't it interesting that Jim Desmond walked out while I'm speaking? Okay. First of all, there's the bogus notion of organic climate change, which people say, oh, this is causing all the fires. No, it's not. And there are a lot of scientists, legitimate scientists, that speak to that. All right. Then we never hear things about weather warfare. And, some people are so brainwashed, so mind programmed that they can't imagine that there's weather warfare going on involving fire, setting fires. Why is that not discussed? Because we're trying to be all nice and do things for our own personal gain? Is that what's going on? That era is gone. So if we're not going to talk about all these things, we shouldn't even have an agenda like this because it's not addressing things comprehensively. We have all these people come up here and their areas of specialization. They're specialists, but we need a new mindset regarding this issue and all of them. We need to have a comprehensivist mindset where we talk about everything organically together, and that's where we're headed. Anything based in lies is going to collapse. It's going to collapse. It's on its way to collapsing. Nora, I bet you could be a really sweet woman, but you really need to get on the right side of history because it really would change your life. Sincerely. Think about this. Thank you.
Thank you. We will now hear from those that have requested to speak by phone. Again, when it's your turn to speak, you'll be unmuted and you'll hear a recording that will tell you to begin your comments after the beep. I'd like to remind the callers that they should mute their TV or live video stream before they begin speaking, and we'll begin with our first caller.
Paul the Bold. The updates seem to be well thought out. I especially like the part in attachment C that is public comments on the updated fire guidelines and staff responses, where it says, A, the county should follow LA county regulations to not allow more density within high fire or very high fire severity areas and do not expand the wildland-urban interface, which reflects what many of us have been thinking and saying, that if you put high-density structures willy-nilly in higher fire risk zones, such as to promote a transportation hub, the risk of a calamitous fire outcome is more injuries, deaths, and property damage. And by the way, insurers upping the price or actually leaving the state will be increased. Another thing I'd like to mention is, putting battery energy storage sites in these high fire severity areas. I just heard that lithium fire in Otay Mesa has been burning for 7 days. It's horrible. And it doesn't really matter whether you put those things in industrial zones or residential zones. If you have to evacuate people within 1 mile, it's going to affect a lot of people in any case.
Thank you. Your time is up. We'll go to our next speaker.
Truth, what's to consider? We know vehicle miles traveled increased density, which automatically resulted in increased fire risk and decreased fire response times. And speaking of fire safety guidelines, how does this help the budget decisions to cut spending on environmental clearance in the so-called high fire severity zones? But all these areas that the state decided were fire zones seem to be the areas where professional wild arsonists like to pop up on windy days in the backcountry where it's hardest to respond. This item says, quote, the county has no discretion in the approval of the adopted state fire zone map, end quote. Actually, you guys did have a choice when you chose to adopt the map. Now you're even going to choose to change the county fire code to match the state. How does Sacramento know what works here? But one of the real solutions to decreasing fire risk is simple. Stop homes having all-electric appliances, end EV charging stations and battery storage sites, and ban all electric vehicles. Lithium batteries are dangerously increasing fire and environmental hazards for everyone. I'd like to know why there was no short summary of the alterations to the document available for quick viewing. That being said, on page 48 is where some truth can be found. Quote, higher densities increase the risk of home-to-home ignitions and necessitate fire-resistant construction, evacuation plans, and safe refuge. Traditional housing developments with lower density designs allow each individual home structure to directly integrate wildfire safety provisions, end quote. What that means is each city or county that promotes the unaffordable stack effect is promoting fire risk and death. And the alleged best practice recommended of placing high density next to low density is an example of knowingly putting more lives at risk of fire. And how did Dan Silver from Endangered Habitats League manage to be a stakeholder? I've heard this guy comment before at Sandag, and he certainly does not represent the voice of the unincorporated areas in any way.
Thank you. Your time is up. We'll go to our next speaker.
Pretty funny when you talk about public outreach and then you don't even engage with the public. You just engage with like NGOs and of the like. But yet the people in the communities tell you what's going on and you don't want to listen. So that's probably why, because you're going to have all these people that are going to like sit there and, want to hold your pocket and walk around with you. But this, it's like if you can't even acknowledge what's causing the fires, for you to even pretend to try and mitigate it and protect people from them is a bit absurd. I mean, you don't even acknowledge the chemtrails that spray heavy metals upon us and the land and their nano-sized particulates that are highly flammable. It's like nanothermite, like what they used in, 9/11. But so the fires will burn very quickly, a lot hotter, and a lot more rapidly. So, it's just kind of ridiculous. And then again, with the lithium bombs, and you're wanting to put this in everybody's, like you want everyone to be driving in a lithium bomb. And then you want to add more of that all around. And it's funny because the city of San Diego is a very high fire zone. But it's like, we're building densely there, making sure that, it's just ridiculous to think about the fact that you guys want to pretend to help. And that's nice. Like, it is. Like, it looks good, right? But it doesn't look good when you can't even do the things that make sure the fire doesn't happen. You're like actually instigating it and pushing it to be the facts. And when you do this in the unincorporated area, you can put people and get them out of there because you're going to make the regulations and everything so strict that they're not even going to want to build there. But that's the plan, so that you can get everybody where you need them to go. You need to shuttle the people and have them migrate to different areas. So as long as you can have all these mitigations that you're pretending are going to help, the people will believe that they can't be there anymore.
Thank you. Your time is up. We'll go to our next speaker.
Yeah, ditto to everything everyone just said. That's right. They want everybody in one area. And I'm reminded of a story from a woman, a very wealthy woman. She owned a ranch out in New Mexico, and I met her where did I meet her? I met her in Coronado. Oh, yeah, that Life Itself, that TED Talk. Oh, God, here we go. So, yeah, there were all these people, very well-to-do people, and, out of touch, had no fucking clue. She was talking about how her ranch caught on fire, and she's like, and it was just it was unbelievable because, they were doing a controlled fire. And my husband says, I wonder why they're doing a controlled fire today when the winds are up. I looked at her like, are you fucking kidding me? Like, hello? They're doing a controlled fire when the winds are up. That is government. That is entirely why they're doing a control. It's just like, yeah, out of touch people, they don't get it. The public doesn't get it. These well-to-do people don't get it. Eventually, one day, they'll all get it.
Thank you.
Got it?
And Chairwoman Vargas, that concludes public comment on this item. On behalf of Chairwoman Vargas, we'll now hand the floor over to Supervisor Desmond.
Thank you, Chair. And I just want to say thanks to Planning and Development Services for all the work and effort that went into this, and updating our guidelines to reflect the state current law, which I know changes a lot for the fire code, and clarifying the requirements, hopefully for development of projects that are actually required to prepare fire protection plans. So hopefully this will make it easier for them. I appreciate the efforts to condense the actual language, and I think we should be making every attempt to reduce, clarify, and streamline our guidelines and regulations while still promoting fire protection and safety in the unincorporated area. So thanks for great effort on this, and I'll go ahead and move the item.
Thank you. And on behalf of Chairman Vargas, do any of our other colleagues have any comments? Not seeing any. I'd look for a second.
Yeah.
Oh, sorry,
again,
Supervisor Montgomery Stepp.
Yes, no problem. Thank you so much for the presentation. I particularly like the public outreach slide because I wish that were more the case for the next item, but I'm not saying that you all haven't done everything you can do. I just we need agreement on all of these things. So I just had one question about something that was brought up in public comment around the language regarding variances. Just wanted to get a response from you on that.
Supervisor Montgomery Stepp through the chair. The changes that are being made to the updated guidelines reflect state law. State law provides for that flexibility and allows for waivers to be granted. It does require approval from the local fire district. It requires the local fire district to make findings that that waiver isn't going to put anybody in harm's way. So that is all consistent with what's in state law, and it's just reflected in our updated guidelines.
Thank you for that. Is there, does the state law allow us to kind of go above and beyond, or what is our framework based on the state law? Are we, there are often cases where we can go above and beyond. Is this one of those cases or no?
In terms of this particular item, it's on a case-by-case basis, Supervisor. So if an applicant has difficulty meeting that particular standard, they can make a request to the local fire district to explore a lesser standard, maybe some exception to that particular requirement. That's looked at a case-by-case basis. The local fire district would evaluate that to make sure that it is still safe, and then they would make the appropriate findings, and then that would move forward to the decision makers for consideration.
Okay, thank you very much. I will second the motion. Thank you.
Thank you, Supervisor. Not seeing any more comments. We have a motion by Supervisor Desmond, a second by Supervisor Montgomery Stepp. Please vote. And that motion passes unanimously with all supervisors who are present voting. We will now move on to discussion item 9. Notice public hearing, update on developing a County of San Diego vehicle miles traveled VMT mitigation program and associated exemption to the California Environmental Quality Act. We will now hand it to our county team for a presentation. We'll give them a second to get set up here.
Good morning, Chairwoman Vargas and members of the board. I'm Mark Slovic with Planning and Development Services. Today, Jacob Armstrong, David Davis, and I will be presenting on item 9, an update on developing a County of San Diego vehicle miles traveled or VMT mitigation program, and highlight 4 options that staff is currently evaluating. Today is a check-in with the board to present an update on the development of a county VMT mitigation program and options to consider, such as the potential for increasing housing densities in certain communities, which staff are evaluating as part of the program. The board does not need to select a specific option today, but can provide direction on any of the options presented. Staff will continue to evaluate the 4 options and return in the fall with results of the analysis. In the fall, the board will be asked to select an option, then staff will develop the mitigation program. Senate Bill 743 was signed into law in 2013 and required a change to how local jurisdictions analyze transportation impacts under the California Environmental Quality Act, or CEQA. The intent of the legislation was to balance the needs of managing traffic congestion with statewide goals to reduce greenhouse gas emissions, encourage infill development, and improve public health through more active transportation like walking and biking. The county is implementing SB 743 in 2 phases. The first phase included the adoption of a Transportation Study Guide, or TSG, that established thresholds and criteria for land development projects to utilize when conducting traffic studies for CEQA. Based on board direction, phase 2, our current phase, includes exploring VMT mitigation program options that include partnerships with SANDAG or other agencies and local jurisdictions. It also includes analyzing transit opportunity areas, or TOAs, which are areas located near existing or planned transit where a focused mitigation program could occur to give projects a way to mitigate for VMT. VMT mitigation in the unincorporated area is challenging and expensive, given that much of it is suburban or rural in nature, and community members do not have access to viable alternatives to cars like transit or services within walking distance. For example, the cost of extending transit service to rural or semi-rural locations would not be financially feasible or even practical in many cases. This means that mitigation in the unincorporated area is limited to bike lanes, sidewalks, and transportation demand management, or TDM strategies, which include subsidies for transit, shared bike programs, and promoting car and van pooling. However, the amount of VMT reduction associated with these improvements is minimal for projects in the unincorporated county compared to projects located in urban areas where there is high-quality transit and proximity to jobs and services. Given the challenges for projects to reduce their VMT in the unincorporated area, a programmatic approach could provide a mechanism for projects that would otherwise have significant VMT impacts that they are likely unable to mitigate with transit and bicycle and pedestrian improvements. This means projects would either not proceed or go through the timely and expensive process of an environmental impact report, or EIR, with a potential statement of overriding considerations. With a mitigation program, those projects could voluntarily apply those same and potentially more mitigation strategies to areas of the county with higher densities and transit facilities where VMT reductions could be maximized and VMT impacts could be mitigated and not require the projects to go through an EIR process. It is important to note that participation in a VMT mitigation program would only be required for projects that do not meet certain criteria in the county's adopted TSG. Projects that meet certain criteria are not required to prepare VMT analysis or mitigation. Examples of projects that are not required to mitigate are projects located in VMT efficient locations that meet the regional average, projects located within board adopted infill areas that are more urban locations, small projects of 11 homes or less, and 100% affordable housing projects. We will now highlight the VMT mitigation program options that staff are continuing to research. Option 1 is an unincorporated area program that would apply broadly across the unincorporated area with limited mitigation. Option 2 is a regional or a partnership program that includes working with SANDAG on a regional mitigation program. Option 3 is a focused mitigation program in specific transit opportunity areas, or TOAs. And option 4 would also include a focused mitigation program in the TOAs, but would also include potential increases to housing densities, which would require a change to the county's general plan. These 4 options would be voluntary and available to project applicants if they choose to participate in the program and receive the benefit of streamlining and not having to do their own VMT analysis or mitigation. In the fall, when the board selects an option, staff will begin the EIR process, which will take up to 1.5 years. If the board directs increasing the housing densities under option 4, it would extend the time frame to 3 years due to the additional environmental analysis and stakeholder outreach involved with changes to the general plan. Staff would also provide an update on any additional funding needed to implement option 4.
Under option 1, the county would create a program that covers the remaining portion of the unincorporated area located outside of VMT efficient areas and infill areas, including county village areas. Staff calculated the total VMT reduction needed for planned units in the general plan, and there is not enough mitigation to fully mitigate for VMT. Based on the analysis, there is limited transit and other VMT reducing infrastructure like bike lanes, sidewalks, trails, and pathways, and only 4% of the planned growth can be fully mitigated. This option would require either partnering with other jurisdictions, like the City of San Diego, where the mitigation strategies would have greater VMT reductions, or require an environmental impact report, or EIR, with a statement of overriding considerations, because VMT impacts cannot be fully mitigated. This option could face legal challenges since the program would likely not be able to fully mitigate, which could put implementation of a mitigation program at risk. Option 2 is a regional and/or partnership mitigation program working with SANDAG and other jurisdictions to develop a regional mitigation program. Under this scenario, the county can partner with other agencies and jurisdictions and collect VMT mitigation funds that could be used to build VMT reducing projects and VMT reductions outside of the unincorporated area. This scenario presents the greatest opportunity for achieving the most significant VMT reductions for the region where major transit services are planned and can be considered for mitigation. However, it could also result in significant costs to implement these type of projects depending on whether the plan is designed to fully mitigate for VMT impacts from development in the region. Per board direction, the county in partnership with SANDAG applied and was awarded a Caltrans grant in August of 2023 to develop and potentially implement a regional VMT mitigation bank program. If implemented, the program will be available to all jurisdictions within the SANDAG region. This effort is in the initial stages and will include an advisory committee with other jurisdictions in the region, as well as the Governor's Office of Planning and Research, or OPR. Staff will provide updates on the development of this program to the board in the fall. Ultimately, the SANDAG board will need to determine how the program will be implemented and administered, and the county board will independently determine if the county will be a participant in the program if adopted by SANDAG. Project completion is expected in December of 2025. Option 3 includes an approach to reduce VMT through a mitigation program focused in transit opportunity areas, or TOAs, to help alleviate VMT-related impacts from projects and allow infill development in key locations around future transit service planned in SANDAG's regional plan. Encouraging development within TOAs that are planned for future transit within the unincorporated area will increase the demand for those transit services and increase the likelihood of transit being provided in the future. However, since there is no guarantee that transit will be provided, the goal of the mitigation program is to mitigate for the VMT impacts associated within individual projects by building VMT reducing infrastructure projects, not on the potential for future transit. If a VMT mitigation program for the TOAs is adopted, project applicants will be provided with a mechanism to achieve their mitigation requirements without having to conduct their own costly and time-consuming technical studies. Under this option, it will be challenging to fully mitigate for VMT and meet the regional average due to the limited mitigation available within the unincorporated area and the overall cost to mitigate. As a result, this option may result in significant VMT impacts and require a statement of overriding considerations. The proposed TOAs, shown in red in this slide, are spread across the unincorporated area and include a total of 12 communities: Bonsall, County Islands, Crest de Hisa, Hidden Meadows, Lakeside, North County Metro, Otay, San Dieguito, Spring Valley, Sweetwater, Valley del Oro, and a small portion in Valley Center along the I-15. Option 4 expands on Option 3 by exploring increasing land use densities within the defined TOAs. There is evidence that increasing land use densities is the most effective strategy to reduce VMT and increase transit ridership. If changes to land use densities were considered, housing capacity could be increased further within the TOAs and more significant VMT reductions could be achieved, which would reduce the amount and cost of mitigation for future projects and increase the number of housing units that could move forward under the VMT mitigation program. Increasing densities could also allow the county to leverage the land use densities and mitigation funding to continue to engage SANDAG to deliver high-quality transit to the TOAs. Staff is currently evaluating the feasibility of land use changes in the TOAs for board consideration. This analysis will allow the board and the public to compare the cost-benefit of the TOA approaches both with and without land use changes in terms of how much each of these options could help streamline development and reduce VMT. The scope of this effort also includes a high-level economic assessment of the TOAs to identify potential housing density increases and related VMT impacts and mitigation.
If a VMT mitigation program is adopted, there are different ways it could be implemented. The following are VMT mitigation tools that could be implemented as part of any of the 4 program options outlined previously. VMT impact fee programs resemble a traditional impact fee program that uses VMT as the metric to build VMT reducing projects like trails, bike lanes, and sidewalks. A VMT exchange program is a program that allows developers to select from a pre-approved list of projects based on the developer's needed VMT reduction. A VMT bank creates a monetary value or credits for VMT reduction, allowing an applicant to purchase reduction credits from either the county or other surrounding agencies for that jurisdiction's VMT reducing infrastructure. As part of the preparation of the update today, staff held meetings with and sought input from community planning and sponsor groups, business and industry groups, environmental stakeholders, and labor organizations. Staff also held public meetings on April 18th and April 23rd, 2024. During the meeting, staff received concerns and comments from stakeholders regarding the county's adopted villages. TOA areas are continuing to be evaluated by staff and will be finalized prior to returning to the board in the fall. Regarding the county's general plan villages, the TOA were identified based on transit proposed in the Sandag Regional Transportation Plan. Without proposed high-quality transit, villages did not meet the requirement to be identified as TOAs. However, the county villages could be included in option 1. Comments were also received with concerns of the potential program being mandatory or voluntary. All of the proposed program options will be voluntary for projects to utilize. If a project participates in the program, they will get the benefit of streamlining. If projects choose to not use the program, they will be required to conduct their own VMT analysis and mitigation. Comments were also raised about returning to a VMT threshold based on the unincorporated VMT average. The board has discretion and can update or revise the county's adopted TSG. However, the current TSG aligns with guidance from OPR, which recommended that unincorporated jurisdictions utilize a regional average for thresholds when evaluating VMT. If the board revises the TSG to use the unincorporated average, we will likely face a legal challenge with less likelihood of success based on the OPR guidance. We would also replace our current standard, which has been upheld by the courts and is currently on appeal. Staff will return to the board in the fall of this year to present on each of the 4 mitigation program options presented today, including the potential for housing density increases within the TOAs, the cost to mitigate for VMT in relation to the reduction that can be achieved, as well as the time required to develop the program. Based on this information, the board can direct staff to proceed with the development of a selected VMT program and start the EIR process. Planning and Development Services recommends the board find that today's actions are exempt from CEQA, receive the update and information on potential VMT mitigation program options, including proceeding with the analysis of increasing land use densities in transit opportunity areas, and direct staff to continue to research the 4 options and return to the board in fall 2024 with the results of the analysis on the proposed programs. This concludes staff's presentation. We are now available for questions.
Thank you. We will now call the public speakers forward. We have 14 total requests to speak, 7 individuals in person and 7 requesting to speak by phone. For any of the members of the public that requested to speak on this item by phone, if you could please dial into the conference line now using the instructions that were provided to you. We'll begin with the in-person speakers. Those that are in favor, as your name is called, please come forward and stand against the east wall under the murals until it is your turn to speak. I'd like to invite forward David Hubbard, Lori Karina Contreras, Justine Murray, and Livia. You have 2 minutes to address the board. If you could please begin by stating your name for the record.
Good morning. My name is David Hubbard of Gasky Dillon Balance. We're a law firm in Carlsbad. First, I'd like to direct the board's attention to the letter from Whitney Hodges of Shepherd Mullen dated May 21, 2024. This letter demonstrates that under a recent Court of Appeal decision known as Olden Properties versus City of Newport Beach, the VMT CEQA guideline does not apply to projects that rely on or tier from general plans that predate the guideline. That's important for purposes of how you're going to apply the VMT requirement in any mitigation program that you end up selecting. But I want to actually address a slightly different issue, which is how using the VMT requirement to disqualify general plan compliant projects from the section 15183 exemption actually damages the integrity of the county's general plan. Currently, county staff in an abundance of caution, is using the VMT analytical requirement to declare general plan compliant projects ineligible for the exemption offered under 15183, simply because the general plan from 2011 and the EIR that went with it did not use the VMT metric. In taking this approach, staff is actually damaging the integrity of the general plan. And let me explain what I mean. The EIR for the general plan in 2011 already determined that the land uses approved under the plan would result in significant unmitigated traffic impacts. But the board then issued a statement of overriding considerations declaring that the benefits of the plan outweigh that impact. That particular finding protects into the future those projects that are consistent with the general plan.
Thank you. Time's up.
Hello, my name is Karina Contreras. I'm here in my capacity as Transportation Policy Advocate for Climate Action Campaign. I just want to first say, it's been over a decade since SB 743 has been state law. And one of the things that we need to consider is we need a lot more affordable housing. We need folks to be close to transportation to reduce those transportation costs. The average cost is about $12,000 a year. When you use public transit, when it's reliable and frequent, you can significantly reduce the amount that folks are paying for transportation in the region. The options before you, options 2, 3, and 4, are the best options, but of those options, 2 and 4 could potentially provide you with a lot more flexibility when you're looking at being able to build more transit-oriented development in transit opportunity areas. There's a lot facing us right now. The high costs of sprawl. It comes in a variety of ways. It's difficult to maintain in perpetuity the public infrastructure like roads, fire stations that are needed to protect that sprawl. Insurance for homes. We see more and more folks seeing a huge struggle to even get insurance. So, VMT mitigation is highly important so that we can build the housing that's necessary in the areas that are appropriate. So I hope that you move forward and investigate options 2, 3, and 4, but 2 and 4 do provide you with the most flexibility. Thank you.
Good morning, Chair Vargas and Supervisors. My name is Lori Holt-Filer, and I'm President and CEO of the Building Industry Association of San Diego County. I'm here to speak in support of directing staff to move forward with a VMT mitigation program based on option 1, a full unincorporated area mitigation program. In 2011, the board adopted a general plan that outlined a path to develop 58,000 homes in the unincorporated area, desperately needed homes. We believe this document best accomplishes the broadest set of goals and policies to address our housing crisis while simultaneously mitigating environmental impacts. The change in direction since the adoption of new VMT requirements has resulted in the loss of the ability to develop over 50,000 new homes for San Diegans. This is a time when San Diego is in the midst of a crushing housing crisis. Everyone needs a home, and prices are at an all-time high. And now, with the ability to build out some 7,700 homes, the pipeline of new projects is running dry. Right now, we need to be doing everything we can to bring back even the possibility of reclaiming those lost homes. Option 1 is the only way to do that. In addition to our own comment letter, you have before you a letter from Shepard Mullen detailing the fact that under the current general plan, all the environmental analysis needed to build those 50,000 homes has already been done. And recent court cases prove that the law is on our side. Projects that are consistent with your general plan can move forward, and we urge you to let that happen. Thank you.
Good morning, Chair Vargas and Supervisors. My name is Justine Murray. I'm the Executive Director of Public Affairs for the San Diego Regional Chamber of Commerce. We're proud to be the largest local chamber on the West Coast. We represent over 2,200 members and over 300,000 jobs and employees in the San Diego region. We value the importance of ensuring more housing and jobs are available in San Diego. But we're deeply concerned with how the undersupply and lack of production of housing affects our local economy and our members. Our mission is to make the San Diego region the best place to live and work, and production of new housing and preservation of current housing supply is critical to see our mission through. To put it bluntly, for our region's businesses, employers, and employees to be successful, we need to ensure we have an adequate and thriving housing supply in San Diego. As you heard from Lori and the BIA, the county's general plan originally outlined a path to develop about 58,000 homes in the unincorporated areas of our county. Following the adoption of the Transportation Study Guide, the county's capacity for new homes was reduced by more than 50,000 homes that San Diegans need to live and work in our region, down to about 7,000 homes, which is a significant departure from that original number. The general plan was adopted after years of outreach and work and should serve as the basis for housing policy decisions in the county. The intent of the general plan was to construct the greatest number of homes and address our region's housing crisis, and should not be bypassed by other policies, but instead should rather serve as a baseline for housing policies throughout the county. We appreciate the extensive efforts of county staff to bring forward multiple VMT mitigation efforts for consideration today. And while well-intentioned, the adopted VMT policy has led to a massive loss of potential homes for San Diegans, which, as we all know, does not help address our region's housing crisis. The Chamber strongly believes option 1 is the best choice to move the county forward and reclaim the thousands of homes that were lost after the adoption of the Transportation Study Guide. We urge you to support option 1 and determine how the county can move forward with the original merits of the general plan so that San Diego can build the homes we need for the people who live and work here. Thank you.
Thank you. And with the next speaker coming up, I'll call the final two speakers that are in opposition, Sean Kilkenny and Michael Brando.
Good morning, Board. My name is Livia Borak-Bowden. I am an attorney at Coast Law Group, and I'm here on behalf of Coastal Environmental Rights Foundation and Cleveland National Forest Foundation. We are the petitioners who are battling in the Court of Appeal to overturn the VMT Transportation Study Guide, and namely on the basis of the fact that the infill areas plus village areas are not VMT efficient, and in fact, many of those areas are actually above the regional threshold, and they will not help us meet our climate, air quality, open space, public health goals. The county acknowledges that most jobs are in the incorporated areas in the western edges of the unincorporated county, and we are perfectly comfortable having our police officers, teachers, retail workers, hotel workers serve those communities, but we don't have a mechanism to allow them to live in those communities. To enable those people to have a viable housing option, we need to move forward with mitigation option 2 and 4 that provides for a mechanism to put the transportation and transit and auto alternatives in those communities. If we're going to saddle those communities with increased densities, which we think we should have more people where it makes sense, we need to provide the infrastructure to enable those people to get out of their cars. And the VMT mitigation program on a regional level, which allows for housing in the unincorporated area and mitigation elsewhere, will provide that option. And I urge you to expand the 4th option to increase densities in areas that are infill areas plus the village areas. If we are successful on appeal, you're going to have to mitigate for those transportation impacts. And the infill areas, as I mentioned, don't have the they don't meet the threshold right now. Their VMT is above the regional average, so we need infrastructure in these infill areas despite their exemption from the VMT mitigation requirement. Thank you.
Thank you.
Morning, Honorable Chair and Supervisors. My name is Sean Kilkenny. I'm co-founder and partner of Nolan Communities. I want to start by thanking staff for their work on this item. I wish we had a white slip. We certainly support reducing VMT, but we're opposed to the idea of requiring additional mitigation for general plan compliant projects. I want to share with you how we look at projects relative to VMT in the county. We're looking at a property that's identified for residential land uses in the general plan and the accompanying community plan. The site is vacant, it's underutilized, but it's not VMT efficient. We consider 2 approaches. Under the first, Based on our reading of CEQA and case law, we believe that we can rely upon the general plan EIR and density bonus to build approximately 350 units, including 30 deed-restricted very low-income units, 30 moderate-income deed-restricted units, and 350 ADUs. Very low-income units would be around $140,000. Moderate-income units would start from the high threes to low fours, and market-rate homes from the mid-500,000s. Alternatively, based on how the county is interpreting VMT and CEQA, we would have to do VMT analysis, a project-specific EIR, and potentially pay a VMT mitigation fee. As a result, the project would likely be limited to a maximum of 81 homes on 2-acre lots that would start at $2 million. That's 89% fewer homes for 3 times the price due to VMT and the associated CEQA and discretionary processes. That's the difference the current direction on VMT is making. At a time when we're facing a housing shortage, please consider ways to ensure that all communities have the chance to experience appropriate levels of development and investment. We believe that the county's general plan should be respected. Its population distribution strategy was intended to reduce VMT as stated in the GPU EIR project description. Please support the general plan and direct staff to evaluate whether additional VMT mitigation is even necessary for general plan compliant projects. If we want to have a chance at reducing housing costs, please ensure we can implement the general plan. Thank you very much.
Michael, again, I'm going to address the omissions. In one of my spiritual psychology classes, I learned the phrase, control is the master addiction. Control is the master addiction, where a person feels compelled that they've got to control everything. You know, there have been a lot of people here that have talked about these issues that you're talking about, but they don't leave out the parts that you leave out. They don't leave out the parts about United Nations Agenda 21, Jim. They don't leave out the parts about World Economic Forum agendas, which Nathan Fletcher used to minimize when he was here. All about doing things based on lies. And a lot of this, you know, the VMT nonsense is based on the lie of organic climate change. So the foundation of this is nonsense, but even more so as I was flipping through your presentation, I noticed that one of your options said that it would be helpful. I know you're not choosing this, but you're saying one of your options would be to consult Sandag. Sandag. I wonder how many of you have ever sat in for weeks or months on end to Sandag meetings to watch how dysfunctional that organization is, and how they deliberately try to obfuscate what's actually going on. And there's a few in this county that speak out about it. That's what gets me about coming here, the amount of selfishness in this room, that people want to get involved if it's something that affects them personally, their pocketbook, their lifestyle, their home, their neighborhood, when they don't have a broader view, going back to the original problem. Control is the master addiction. And guess what? That always fails. It always comes home to roost.
Thank you. We will now hear from those that have requested to speak by phone. When it is your turn to speak, you'll be unmuted and you'll hear a recording that will tell you to begin your comments after the beep. I'd like to remind the callers that they should mute their TV or live video stream before they begin speaking, and we'll begin with our first caller.
Craig Benedetto speaking today on behalf of NAIOP San Diego, the Commercial Real Estate Development Association. We're speaking today to express concern about the continued trajectory of the VMT implementation program. As others have indicated, the approach the county has taken has significantly hampered the creation of new homes and commercial services. Development applications amply demonstrate this point. With regard to the County of San Diego, our members provide commercial services to help support the county's unincorporated communities. These types of projects, be they retail, office, or industrial, are equally impacted by the county's current approach. In addition, the lack of residential to support these services also renders them potentially infeasible. All of this inevitably leads to more VMT, not less. It forces those seeking certain types of housing to move elsewhere, further away, and driving more. It also forces those who stay to drive further for the services they need or to the jobs they have. The bottom line is the county needs to look at other jurisdictions' approaches that have not been as extreme. In short, there are adequate examples of other successful approaches, and the law is truly on your side. If you do choose to continue with the current construct, and with regard to the options presented by staff today, option 1 is the better of these options. But we'd encourage strong consideration of ways to reduce the fee burden, since that only adds to the cost of development, which is already difficult in the county. Thank you for your consideration.
Thank you. We'll go to our next speaker.
Polar bills, node 2 density housing density increases. The business impact section says a VMT mitigation program could help facilitate additional development and support the development, construction, and housing sectors. That mitigating the VMT could promote development. I'm sure it could. If you have to drive less, you're going to stay near already developed areas, not the open space or East County. The lands you abandon will open up to greedy, usually they are developers who almost certainly won't have your best interests at heart. Now, as for the plan, I see you're already cutting down to 4 options, which discourages free thought. If you want really good ideas, you shouldn't just cut it arbitrarily in the beginning phases of your plans. I didn't hear any real details in the options, but I did hear Sandag. Stay away from Sandag, like Michael Brando pointed out. I've paid a lot of attention to them lately. They don't care about people or ideas beyond their own. In fact, they actually mentioned in one of their proposals next week that their reputation is getting to be notorious in the entire county.
Thank you. Your time is up. We'll go to our next speaker.
That's right. Sandag's even the definition of inequity. This is truth. And they can't even fix the high cost of the broken public transit system. And they follow the state's made-up totalitarian vehicle miles traveled idea about making people move to, quote, urbanized areas while creating regulatory and financial barriers for development outside these areas, end quote. That's called transit-oriented development or sustainable development, both of which are terms directly from the United Nations Agenda 21 plan. Everything's been plagiarized from a foreign agency whose charter was written by a communist, Alger Hiss. So I think it's time for the people to make up a new way to analyze impacts that the state is having. We can call it treason miles expended. Every extra mile expended in treason results in another year in prison. It says these low-density single-family homes, quote, are disincentivized under new state regulations, end quote. See, the state is helping cause homelessness with their policies. Then they have the made-up mitigation requirement. If you want a regular house, then you have to pay for bike infrastructure nobody will use. Or just throw some money somewhere else for public transit very few can use. So this item is basically trying to find loopholes in an intentionally rigged game so the county can finally get a few homes built. No to densify neighborhoods that are already zoned for single-family homes. All density does is increase fire risk, decrease privacy, ruin neighborhoods, displace people, and make developers rich. And let's not pretend that there's such a thing as 100% affordable housing. Taxpayers having their money stolen to subsidize other people's rent is not affordable. And for the $10 million recommendation, the regional program idea is no different than the idea of having RHNA housing quotas be able to be shared regionally, which the state hasn't allowed. And I don't expect an exception for housing in rural areas. So here's my loophole idea. Just like with the so-called affordable housing, let's just call single-family homes VMT efficient and waive all the fees to build them. and every city and county pushing back on all the state nonsense. There you go.
Thank you. Your time is up. We'll go to our next speaker.
Consuelo. Yeah, so Sandag is beyond notorious. It's more like the cartel, actually. So I guess it's no surprise and appropriate that Nora's chair there, too. Anyways, question. Did the people presenting this and supporting all of this come to the meeting using public transportation? Did you? Any of you in the audience? Staff? Anyone? I'm sure some of you did, but not all of you. And there's no shortage of housing. It's just the fact that people can no longer afford the homes in our county. Just the simple fact that a tiny one-bedroom goes for $2,500 these days in North Park is just it's disgusting. They preach that they're concerned, but they're not. They're just doing what they have to do. I'm talking about the people at the podium. They're just doing what they have to do to keep their jobs too. They use the law being on their side, left and right. I heard that a lot. The law. Yeah, the law is made for criminals. Let's just be clear on that one. Let's see, what else do I have? Affordable housing, yeah, another way to lure the people from the unincorporated areas. Yeah, that's all my notes. Oh, 11:11. Hey, it's 11:11. All right, I'm done.
Thank you. We'll go to our next speaker.
Good morning, Chair Vargas and honorable supervisors. I'm Melanie Woods, Vice President of Local Public Affairs at the California Apartment Association. I'm here to express our support of Option 1, development of an unincorporated area VMT program. We are in a housing and homelessness crisis. During COVID, the county proved it can respond quickly in a crisis. So why aren't you treating the lack of housing like a crisis? San Diego is one of the most unaffordable cities in the country, and housing costs are a huge part of that. Meanwhile, current VMT guidelines have made it nearly impossible to build new homes. The county only approved 57 new homes in the unincorporated area last year and 0 tentative maps. So there are truly 0 new homes in the pipeline. I urge you to allow projects consistent with the general plan to move forward. Please adopt Option 1. Thank you.
Thank you. We'll go to our next speaker.
Oh my gosh, the COVID crisis. Dr. Death put us on lockdown when there were no cases, and then that's when the cases started showing up. So that's what we get, is this is kind of stuff that happens. And laws are actually made by criminals, really, is what it is. And, you know, Michael's right about control is a master addiction. You guys are totally addicted to controlling, and that's all this is about. It has nothing to do with saving the planet or providing more housing, because everything you do gets in the way of you actually providing any kind of affordable housing. Because you sit here and you act like we need to do all these things, we need to enslave the people. And again, yeah, how many of you actually ride the public transit or walk or bike that you're pushing? So you're pushing yourself into a corner because you guys don't even do that, and you're not going to be outside of that when you take away all the options for people to travel outside of a densely populated 15-minute city with a bunch of lithium bombs everywhere getting ready to explode. So, I mean, if you really wanted to provide housing, you wouldn't set up all of this red tape and these hoops that you have to go through in order to provide it, because it keeps you from doing that. And so you should actually, you know, if you do care, quit doing that kind of crap and actually provide people with what they need. But this has been coming down from the state anyway. We have the new vehicle miles traveled tax pilot that's coming forward. This has been in the works for a very long time, and now you guys are just going to come in super hot with it because you got to get us out of our cars. No, you don't. You got to get us from traveling, from going anywhere. So when are you guys going to stop taking airplanes places, right? Because destroying the planet. Oh, but no, you need to, right? Because you need to go to the United Nations where you're getting this agenda from so that you can implement it here. Oh, while the community doesn't want it. The people that do are the ones that money's going in their pockets. That's the only reason why they care and why they show up. It has nothing to do with them actually caring about the planet or anything like that. So it's pretty funny that you guys are also enslaving yourselves in this process. And again, just like that, you're going to reap what you sow.
Thank you. Thank you. Your time is up. And Chairwoman Vargas, that concludes public comment on this item. I will now read Chairwoman Vargas's remarks as shown on the slide as I bring it up here. There we are. I want to thank our county staff for the presentation and to all the stakeholders for their comments today. The county's approach to implement VMT aligns with state law and guidance from the Governor's Office of Planning and Research. Ultimately, this is about defense, affordable housing in urban areas that are supported by transit and our transportation infrastructure, rather than in uninsurable areas with extremely high fire hazards and long polluting commutes. I'm proud that our county continues to implement ways to streamline housing, like removing barriers to housing, development, feasibility, and analysis at a neighborhood level. That is looking at ways to help encourage housing production and guaranteed reviews times to get projects through the process quicker in areas exempt from VMT. Now through our VMT mitigation program, we are looking at potentially increasing housing densities in certain areas to open more opportunities for housing in the right locations and streamline the process. When you return in fall, I'd like to further look into option 2, regional and/or partnership mitigation program. This presents a collaborative opportunity for the county, cities across the region, and transportation agencies to work together to solve some of the biggest challenges our region faces in terms of housing and climate change. These issues affect the most underinvested communities in our region as families struggle to pay rising rent and face historical injustices of climate-related air pollution in our communities. We need to bring everyone to the table, community, business, labor, and other governments with land use authority to come up with innovative solutions like transferring of development rights so we can build smart. This collaboration would leverage regional transit projects and allow the scaling up of housing projects where infrastructure can support them. This would create more high-quality job opportunities as well as community benefits. I support county staff direction. Thank you for your hard work. At this time, I'd like to make a motion to support staff recommendations 1, 2, and 3. Additionally, I'd like to add a 4th recommendation to direct the interim county administrative officer to consult with council and report back in appropriate format regarding county VMT analysis, including how county uses CEQA guidelines section 215183 to review development projects. And with that, I will go to Supervisor Anderson for your comments.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I have a couple quick questions. In your analysis, I heard you say that you, as part of the outreach, did sponsor groups, but I didn't hear planning groups, and there is a difference between the two. I think that was a misquote, but go ahead.
Supervisor Anderson, through the chair, that's correct. We did reach out to all community and planning and sponsor groups. We're actually still holding meetings with them, kind of going over the VMT options.
I think for the public's sake, a sponsor group is a person that owns the land but doesn't live there. A planning group member is elected by the community and must live in the district. So that's like saying we're going to let the mayor of San Diego choose who lives in Lakeside and how they live. And that's clearly important that everyone has a voice, but there's a difference between the chicken and the pig when it comes to breakfast. The second thing is you brought up one of the high efficient VMT areas is Crest, and I'm a little familiar with Crest, and Crest doesn't have any sewers, and one of the biggest challenges there is septic. And so while we look at this, like so many of the properties on the infill, it's a flawed theory. It's the best we can do, But it's like when we've identified putting units on the side of a mountain that's a cliff. Ain't happening. And trying to build higher density there, believe me, those people would all love, with their incredible views, have big mansions, and they can't do that because they're stuck, because they're on septic. So, that's one of the biggest flaws of that whole plan. I went back and looked. 3 years ago, we were set with a bunch of challenges trying to meet VMT. And I voted in support of it because there was a promise of homes and that we would have infill, and by this time we would be building all sorts of homes, and we have incredible opportunity. But I pulled the numbers, and we have 1,374 units coming online over the last 3 years that are in progress. Of that, 245 are not VMT exempt. So these projects, the vast majority is low-income housing that doesn't have to meet VMT, or senior communities. These are very singular in use and don't meet the greater need of workforce housing. But we do have 245 units, apartments, coming on board that they've been working on for 3 years. And the problem with that is it doesn't create any generational wealth. These are people that I'm glad they have a place to be, and I think that's a step in the right direction. But what I'd really like to see is that we give people an opportunity to create generational wealth, that they pay off a mortgage, they pay it off, they own it, they pass it on to their kids, and they have something that's substantial, and they're not continuing in this cycle of rent, 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 rent. So when I went through that, I know that we've gone through so much of this in the past, but we don't take into consideration in our VMT modeling all the workforce housing that works in San Diego and lives in Riverside or Tijuana. And there's been no consideration of that whatsoever. And some in my district have joked that it's political science, not scientific data, because we're only looking at it from a very narrow standpoint. Yet I know in my district that at the Golden Acorn, 2/3 of the employees live in Riverside and work. I also know that many of my son, who's stationed on Point Loma on a submarine, most of his crew lives in Riverside. They don't live here. They're making that commute. So when we talk about how we want to protect the air, and we want to protect, and by the way, when I was walking precincts to get elected and I was knocking on doors, not one person said, "Oh, please do something about my commute. It's too short. I want to commute much further." And so these people aren't choosing to live up there. They have no other choice. And when we talk about how we want a higher quality of life, if we don't provide the housing for our workforce, how are we going to achieve that? So as I'm going through this, I did read the Shepard-Mullen letter and the arguments that they made. We also heard from Mr. Hubbard today, another attorney. And the concern I have is when you presented all this stuff, I didn't hear, and maybe it was in there, any consideration for the Hilltop case where the DeJong family beat the county, our county, and it said, we've just lost this on appeal because we were trying to get them to prepare an EIR instead of using the general plan checklist. That's that 15183 checklist. This ruling essentially says that the general plan adequately addresses traffic-related impacts and on their project and would not result in any significant traffic impact that wasn't identified by the general plan. To me, that fundamentally changes how we look at this. Then if you go on and look at the Olin versus Newport Beach, the city was not required to do a VMT study for a project because the general plan was adopted in 2006. This is new data, new information, and I don't believe it was reflected in the work that you did. You may have done this work, but I don't believe it was reflected there, and I don't believe it was a choice. And I represent really smart people. My constituents, first of all, they elected me, so they've got to be super smart. But they're very perceptive, and I'm concerned they're going to say, we were led to a decision because we didn't have all the facts. And I want to be able to defend your hard work and the great work that you do. And staff does an incredible job here. But I want to be able to make a decision with all the facts, not just the facts that were presented to me today. And so what I'd like to propose is that you come back with the next board meeting and address these issues, because this is a fundamental change from what we've done. This literally would put 50,000 homes online immediately in my district. And the issue that I've said, and Monica, you have not heard this yet, but I've been saying for the last 3 years, is that we were promised villages. And when I moved to Alpine, we were promised that we would be a village. And yes, 20 years later, we got our first Albertsons. But you know what? If you don't have a dry cleaner, if you don't have the simple things that economies of scale of a community bring, then you have to transport your kid out of your community to get the daycare, to get the ball fields, to get your dry cleaning done, to do your shopping. We need to make these communities whole if we can make them whole, because that's going to lower the VMT, because they're not going to have to leave their community. Now, we've built some low-income housing in Alpine. It was before I became a supervisor, and I think low-income housing is important for everybody. But the issue I had is there's no jobs. So while VMT is exempt when it comes to low-income housing, these are the people that shouldn't be living in these communities unless we complete the villages, so that there is jobs and opportunities. But we have got Ramona, we have Lakeside, we have all these communities in my district, and that are considered outside the VMT today. But if these new court cases are interpreted, and look, the court bases future decisions based on past decisions made in the cases. We lost the appeal. It's a done deal. And for us not to accept that or consider accepting that and allowing us to go immediately to 50,000 homes in my district that were in the general plan from the very beginning, that would complete these communities and not leave them half-baked. I would ask that we bring this back at the next board meeting with this new data. I'd like to support the things that the chair has suggested, but I think there's more opportunity if they would incorporate it and bring it back. And I don't think it's going to take a lot of time to study the Hilltop case, because we had an attorney who lost in court. So we should know that very well. So I don't think this needs to be 90 days, 180 days. I would expect that our law team did a great job, but they lost because they're on the wrong side of the law. And so it's the same thing with the Newport Beach. But I'd like for this to come back. And we've heard from all the testimony of all the people that want to go to work and build those homes and create that generational wealth. You know, we just heard about the one project alone, and that would fundamentally change. But turning around and saying that we're going to have 245 units of apartments, and that's all we can show for 3 years, we can do better. And not only that, our constituents, at least mine, are counting on us to do better. But I also represent a large portion of the unincorporated, and I can understand why. If you don't live in the unincorporated, you may not feel as strongly. Thank you very much, but I'm asking that we bring it back as an amendment in the next board meeting, address this issue, and then make these decisions.
Supervisor Desmond. Oh, sorry. I apologize, Supervisor Desmond. Chairwoman is ready.
She's typing out.
My apologies.
It was a friendly amendment.
Got it. Okay. Chairwoman's asking if you want to continue the item.
That's what I'd like to do. I want to have the full data, and then make the decisions on 1, 2, 3, 4, and maybe we have a 5.
Okay, I think I got a 6th. Anyway, all right. We ready? Thank you very much. All right. Well, 4 years ago, we adopted...
Are you going to accept that as or how's that work?
Is there a second?
She says not yet.
Okay. You want everybody to speak first?
No second yet.
All right. So 4 years ago, we adopted the unincorporated average when this first VMT started out. And then 2 years ago, we changed that to the regional average. And since then, we've basically had a de facto moratorium on housing in the unincorporated area. I voted against the regional average. However, I was hopeful that we would at least get a workable mitigation program. But, you know, hearing from staff, and I know they've been working hard, they've been turning over rocks and everything, trying to find mitigation on the unincorporated areas, but we find out that if they did everything possible for mitigation in the unincorporated areas, it would only mitigate 4% of the planned growth. Only 4%. So we got to go find 96% of the mitigation somewhere else, which basically means no housing being built. And as you heard, it's only been 57 housing units were entitled last year and no tentative maps, so the pipeline is drying up. We've got like no housing coming. And we picked the most restrictive options, or the guidance from the state. It wasn't mandatory, it was guidance from the state. We picked the most restrictive. We picked 15% as far as the reduction. We also picked the regional average. And we picked both of those, basically tying our hands. We picked the most restrictive, and we're still getting sued over that. So we might as well go for the whole enchilada, and if we're going to get sued when we actually do the most restrictive. No offense to enchiladas, but anyway, as my colleague brought up, we got all these people driving to Riverside County. We should get credit for building housing here so people don't have to drive to Riverside. When I was mayor of San Marcos, most of our firefighters lived in Riverside. Most of our sheriffs that were stationed there lived in Riverside. They couldn't afford to live in the city that they were serving. And so right now, I think this is completely unworkable. We're not building housing. We're hitting the housing crisis. We got to change. We got to do something. We got working adults, veterans, college graduates, service people, people in their 20s and 30s who cannot afford a home in San Diego County. They can't, and our businesses are suffering. It's hard to import talent from any other place in the country to where it's the most expensive place to live. And their wages, unfortunately, can't always keep up with what it costs to actually have a home here. So I think we need an approach that works for the specific needs of our county and for the unincorporated communities at risk. We've got communities that are kind of dying on the vine or potentially dying on the vine because of no new development, no more housing or growth coming in. And I think we got to be honest with ourselves, with the public to reserve. The regional average is not required by state law. The regional design as opposed to the unincorporated. It's a guideline, but it's not required. And the 15% reduction threshold is not required. And many counties have gone with other options. They've gone to maybe a 5% reduction or a 0% reduction, or have gone with the unincorporated. San Diego County, we're unique. We've got a huge amount of our county. Most of it is actually unincorporated. And so the fact that we went with the regional doesn't really make sense. So everything I think that we've done regarding VMT has been out of fear of litigation. We're going to get sued. Well, we did the most restricted and we got sued anyway. So I think what we really have to do is get back to basics and build housing. We got to get housing built. And I know people don't like tiny homes, but we got to build housing for our workforce, and so people can afford to live here. Our VMT guidelines should be closely, if not completely, aligned with our smart growth principles, and at least, at a minimum, building out the villages in the unincorporated area. I got Valley Center, their water district, based on our general plan, put in this huge pipeline, a sewer pipeline, because of the anticipated growth. And now they do not have the people paying into the fund to pay for that. And so that, I forget how many millions they are in the hole and backed up. So actually, I'm in favor of option one, and I think that is going to provide more housing. And I know it's a big, scary number, 58,000 households. That many will not be built. That's just not going to happen at 58,000. And I think we've basically, the regional average approach has stagnated, and our prices of housing keeps going up. So I think as we continue upholding this moratorium on growth in the villages, the developers and when developers and local governments have been working over a decade to build them out, it's been absurd. So especially now, we just don't have the mitigation to even build 4% of the planned growth. So I think we need to align VMT with our planned growth. And I understand, I guess, you're going to come back with all of these options again weighed out. I definitely support option one and even option four. I think where we can have some sort of a look at the transit operating, the TOAs, the transit opportunity areas, and maybe increasing density there with option one and option four. Option two, I'm sorry, to the chair, I disagree. I think we're going to have too many cooks in the kitchen if we had Sandag and all these other entities coming on board and making these decisions. I mean, I think we know what we need to do, and that's reverse course. So I'm going to actually ask for another option to be considered. I'd call it 1A, and basically to ask staff to align our villages with the VMT guidelines. So if we can build out at least our villages, that would, my understanding, we would bring about a 22,000 capacity, not a 58, but it might be a compromise, so we're not going for, again, the enchilada, the whole enchilada, but of item option one. But at least if we build out the villages and go forward with the village plans that are already in place and were vetted in the general plan, that might be an opportunity to at least look at a less. So, pardon me. To assess as part of it. So at option 1A, to say, okay, if we just focused on the villages and we just did the build out of the villages, that would bring in another 22,000 potential. And I know when we put these numbers out, everybody thinks, oh my gosh, they're going to put 22,000 homes in tomorrow. That's not going to happen. But I think, so anyway, I'd like to ask for the friendly amendment to have option 1A to explore just the village build out, not the whole 58,000, and what the potential I guess, cost and mitigation and would be for that. So thank you for letting me rant. Okay.
And Supervisor Montgomery Stepp.
Thank you so much, Chair. Thank you for the presentation. This is my first look at VMT. I am hearing quite a few different things from the board. It sounds like possibly option 1, 2, 3, 1A, 2, 3, and 4, just based on everyone's feedback. Just because this is my first look at VMT, that's what I would prefer. I would prefer the full gamut so that I am making a fully informed decision. My understanding is that this board did adopt the transportation guide in, well, I'm confused now, 2020, the unincorporated average was put in place, and then in 2022, the more regional VMT average. But since then, we have been sued. We have won at the trial court level. Is that the understanding? And then it is now, that decision is now being appealed. Okay. I would like to know, and you may not have this right now, but I really need to understand the amount of projects and units that were built based on the after the 2011 general plan. And what that looks like to this point based on the decisions that have been made by this board. I need that for additional context to understand what that cliff really looks like. I also want to ask what standard we are using as affordable housing. So what AMI standard are we using as part of the carve-out?
Supervisor Montgomery, step through the chair. We rely on the state for what's considered affordable housing, and it is the moderate income level, which does go all the way up to 120% of the area median income.
And does that so that standard though does not include for sale housing? Does that include for sale housing?
It does. It would include either for rent or for sale. That's correct.
And that 100% affordable housing carve out, if there is a for sale development at or below 120% AMI, it would meet the standard that this board currently has voted on.
Supervisor, that's correct.
Okay. All right. I just have a few other technical questions. I would just say before I go into that, I do want to see every option come back. I would prefer to see that. Just so, again, I'm making a fully informed decision. And then at that time, I'll have the additional answers to my questions about the development in unincorporated areas, the issue around aligning the villages concept with VMT guidelines, but also understanding that, based on state law, there are certain restrictions that we absolutely will have. So what I wanted to ask you, the first question was just about option one, and these again are just technical questions for my understanding. Regarding the overriding considerations for projects implemented in option one, would the overriding considerations be applied on a programmatic or program level for all future developments, or would it have to be filed on a project by project basis?
Supervisor Montgomery, step through the chair. It could be set up either way, Supervisor. So the program EIR could provide coverage for the program itself, and then individual projects would have to make their own statement of overriding consideration on a case-by-case basis, or we could do an EIR, likely updating the general plan EIR to cover VMT, so that when projects do move forward, they do not have to do their own environmental impact reports with statement of overriding considerations and have the ability to basically streamline development. So when we report back in the fall, we can provide both options for the board's consideration in terms of how we set that up.
Okay, thank you for that. Would like to see both of those. My second question is just with regard to option two. I just want to get a clear understanding with a partnership with Sandag, because I understand the concern. However, I think if we're truly going to resolve the issues in the entire county, there needs to be some collaboration between the transportation agency, the lead transportation agency, and the 18 cities. Otherwise, we will have a disjointed development plan, so to speak, and our goals will not be met when it comes to our climate. They will not, because it's just really hard to get cooperation even when we're in the same room together. So if that doesn't happen, I'm very concerned about what the impacts will be, not only on the climate, but also on homelessness. We do know that we need more units, but what types of units are we building, and how does that correlate to the homeless population? There is a concern that we are losing talent in this region every single day. We understand that. If we are building out for that reason, we can call that what it is, but also understand that we may need a different set of solutions and a different type of unit for people who are transitioning from being homelessness. So if staff further pursues the partnership with Sandag, would they be the lead agency on any type of EIR?
Supervisor, for the Sandag Regional Mitigation Program, an EIR would not be necessary. The program is basically setting up some options that will be available to projects should they need mitigation in the region. Now, when we move forward with a program and we start the environmental impact report process, we, as part of that, could cover off on that mitigation program so that projects, if they choose to participate in the regional program, they could streamline those individual projects. So it's something that we could study as part of our EIR process, but there is no separate EIR needed for Sandag to move forward with those options.
Okay, and whatever we choose, I would prefer that the county have full control over our part. So bringing Sandag in on anything other than a place where we gather information and collaborate with them would be a concern to me. So thank you for answering those questions. I'll turn back to the maker of the motion to see what it is, but I would prefer to have all of the options here in front of us. And the last thing I'll say, I would like to see potential legal ramifications, case status of where we are now, but what has been decided previously as a part of this assessment evaluation. I would also like to bring the insurance discussion into as we determine what option we will choose. I did ask staff, and I know you all are working on an additional overlay of the fire zones that we see to be a part of that as well. So I would just like to see all of that. Thank you.
Thank you, Supervisor. Okay. So the chairwoman, on behalf of the chairwoman, she would like to retract her previous motion and make a new motion to continue the item, adding in her request number 4, which was to add a 4th recommendation to direct the interim county administrative officer to consult with council and report back in an appropriate format regarding county VMT analysis, including how county uses CEQA guidelines, section 15183, to review development projects. Add Supervisor Anderson's request to include complete information on how recent legal cases would affect implementation or VMT mitigation program to be reported, and for that piece, for Supervisor Anderson's piece, to be reported out at our next meeting on June 5th. And then also add Supervisor Desmond's 1A to assess/explore the village build out, and add Supervisors Monica Montgomery Stepp's request will also be included in the report. So we have a motion, and we have a second by Supervisor Desmond. So we have a motion by Supervisor Vargas, not seeing any other deliberation, and a second by Supervisor Desmond. Please vote. That motion passed, Chairwoman Vargas, that motion passes unanimously with all supervisors being present, voting aye. Thank you. Now we will call the remainder of our public speakers for non-agenda public comment. We still have 15 total requests to speak on matters not listed on the agenda, 6 individuals in person, and 9 requesting to speak by phone. For those that requested to speak via phone, if you could please dial into the conference line now using the instructions that were provided to you. We'll begin with the in-person speakers. I'd like to invite, as your name is called, if you could please come forward and stand against the east wall under the murals until it is your turn to speak. Then you'll have 2 minutes to address the board. I'd like to invite forward the following individuals: Angelica, Jeff, I believe it's Weber, Scott Sutherland, David, William, and I believe it's Shah Roke. You may come forward in any order, and you'll have 2 minutes to address the board. You may come forward in any order, and you can start your comments. Yep. Thank you.
Primero que nada, mi nombre es Angélica Camargo, soy residente de Spring Valley.
First of all, my name is, ¿cómo se llama?
Angélica Camargo.
Angélica Camargo, and I am a resident here from Spring Valley.
Antes que nada, lo primero que tengo que decir es la seguridad es un derecho universal.
Okay, first of all, what I would like to say is safety is a universal right.
La razón que estoy aquí hoy es para comentar acerca de las tiny homes que quieren poner en mi vecindario.
Okay, and I'm here to talk about the tiny homes that you would like to go ahead and place in my neighborhood.
Básicamente en mi backyard.
Basically, it would be in my backyard.
Donde tenemos nada más en lo que viene siendo una cuadra, tenemos 10 proveedores de cuidado infantil.
We have, in just one block, we have 10 providers for children.
A pasos tenemos un kindergarten y una escuela elemental, primaria.
We have a kindergarten, we have a school, the elementary school.
Y también tenemos una preparatoria.
And we also have a high school, high school. A high school.
La razón por la cual estoy aquí, no estoy en contra de los homeless, no estoy en contra de ayudarlos.
Okay, the reason why I'm here, and first of all, I'm not against the homeless, and I'm not against not helping them either.
Lo único que digo es que no es la locación perfecta para eso.
The only thing that I'm here to tell you is that I don't think that this is the location that is the perfect one for them to be at.
En nuestro vecindario ya tenemos un rate muy alto de criminal.
Okay. We already have in our neighborhood a high rate of, crimes.
Cuando hablamos al Sheriff Department, ellos dicen que no tienen staff para responder.
Okay. When we call the sheriff departments, what they tell us is that they don't have enough staff for them, to come and help.
Cuando una persona indigente sale desnudo o empieza a jugar con sus partes privadas en frente de niños, eso es preocupante.
And when we have these homeless people, that are naked there and touching themselves in front of children, that is really worrisome.
Tenemos una comunidad muy alta de personas adultas, ancianos.
We also have a very, very high community of elderly people.
Que ellos son los más vulnerables en la forma de que ya ha habido varios robos en sus casas.
And they are the ones that are the most vulnerable, because their houses have been robbed.
La otra razón mayor que digo es, yo estoy viviendo el sueño americano aquí en los Estados Unidos. Yo soy de Tijuana.
Okay, and the reason why I'm telling you all this, I'm living the American dream. I'm originally from Tijuana.
Soy dueña de casa.
I'm a homeowner.
Y también me preocupa el que poniendo esta facilidad ahí, mi propiedad va a bajar de peso y mi aseguranza va a subir.
And I'm also worried that if we place them there, my house is going to go lower in price and my insurance is going to go up high.
Tengo mi esposo que trabaja 7 días a la semana, nada más para poder vivir normal, como vive media clase.
I have a husband. He has to work 7 days a week in order just to have a normal life, a middle class life.
Tengo un hijo que está en la Army, está estacionado en Alaska.
I have a son, he's in the Army, he's stationed in Alaska.
Tengo una hija que es enfermera en el Departamento de Emergencias de Children's Hospital.
I have a daughter, and she's a nurse in the Emergency Department at Children's Hospital.
Y hoy como madre, como abuela, como hermana, como...
Okay.
Thank you. Your time is up.
And today, like a mother, a grandmother,
Eso está bien. Just reconsider everything that I say, please. Thank you.
Thank you. Next speaker. No, sir, I'm sorry, no clapping.
Scott Sutherland from the Elfin Forest Harmony Grove Town Council. I'm here regarding the battery electric storage system proposed for Eden Valley. I'm going to read a statement by Joe Rowley, who is a retired vice president for Sempra Energy. He couldn't be here due to recovery from some minor surgery. So my name is Joe Rowley. I was formerly a vice president at Sempra U.S. Gas and Power. For many years, I was responsible for selecting sites and developing the company's large-scale power projects, including natural gas, solar, wind, and battery facilities. I live in Escondido, although not near the proposed Seguro battery project. When I realized the Seguro project's proposed location, I was astounded. To placing an industry facility with well-known public health and safety risks in the middle of a residential neighborhood is an act of extreme hubris. There is nothing that can be done to modify this project to make it suitable for the proposed location. By now, everyone knows the lithium-ion batteries are subject to spontaneous thermal runaway. Very recent battery fires in Otay Mesa and in Germany have produced riveting videos of violent flames, toxic chemical plumes, and firefighters standing by helplessly. There's nothing they can do other than attempt to cool nearby battery containers with water and hope. AES says that following codes and standards will address the health and safety risk to the surrounding neighborhood, but it takes many years of trial and error experience to develop effective regulations. The large-scale battery industry is in its infancy, and the codes and standards that exist today are just an initial reaction to a first-generation bad experience.
Thank you.
Thank you. I'll put it in the record.
That's absolutely fine. If you want to hand it to the clerk.
Good morning. My name is Jeffrey Weiner. I'm a resident of Spring Valley, and I'm also a participant in Spring Valley Coalition 2024. We support programs supporting unhoused persons, but we have a lot of questions around the process that was used for this site. And we have a lot of questions about the site itself. Some were already raised here. We've made multiple requests, but those requests have become unanswered. We've had lots of questions, and those questions were greeted with misinformation, inconsistent information, leaving us to rely upon rumors and innuendo, which is unfortunate. We have almost 1,000 signatures of other citizens that are concerned, and we're a growing coalition. And those 1,000 signatures, most of them happened just within the last 2 weeks. So we want to be a part of some meaningful dialogue. Meaningful dialogue. We have ideas we want to share. We want to make sure our concerns are heard. But so far, we've just been frustrated, and that frustration is growing. So we look forward to having opportunities for those discussions. Hopefully they're coming soon, but the concern is growing, and we just wanted to make sure that you were aware of that. Thank you.
My name is David Covarrubias, 21-year resident of Spring Valley. I addressed the board last month at the April meeting, so I'm back again. Same concerns. We were told a week ago that this facility is going to be a sleeping-only facility that is not going to be offering any kind of counseling or services. Environmental studies were waived because this is an emergency. The people that live in this area are criminals. They don't want help. I'm not going to go into that because I went into that last month. The people that live on the west side of El Kelton Boulevard, there's at least one family that's here now whose backyard fences are next to this open field. These people are jumping their fences, climbing into their backyards, stealing their property, and then threatening the residents when they come out to confront them. At the 7-Eleven on the corner of El Kelton Boulevard and Hamishaw Road 3 weeks ago, one of the clerks was assaulted at 2 o'clock in the morning by a homeless person and spent 3 days in the hospital. I was there 2 days ago, and I got complaints from some of the other clerks there that they're coming in at all hours of the day and night, using the microwave, leaving their trash on the floor, and stealing, and they can do nothing about it. I still haven't received a phone call from Nora Vargas. You sent your chief of staff to talk to me at their last meeting, and I haven't heard from him either. I got a couple of text messages, and that was it. That's all I have. Thank you.
Hi, my name's William Stanhope. Thank you so much for allowing me to speak today. In the 1930s, prolonged drought devastated lives and livelihoods. Entire communities were abandoned. In the fall of 2022, the Southwest United States was headed to a similar disaster. As you may remember, many of California's reservoirs were running dry. What's the solution? A 695-mile sea-to-sea Columbia to Colorado River pipeline would start in Oregon and end up in the Fontenelle Reservoir. From there, gravity would take the water down the Green and Colorado rivers, generating clean electricity and replenishing all the reservoirs below. Each year, on average, the Columbia River discharges 64.5 trillion gallons of water. Just 4% of the water that flows into the ocean from the Columbia is enough to replenish all the water released from Lake Mead to the lower Colorado. San Diego County gets 70% of its water from the lower Colorado River. Unlike the 800-mile Alaska oil pipeline constructed through untamed wilderness, the C2C pipeline can be constructed along existing highways at a cost 1/3 the price of California's unfinished high-speed rail. Next. The CDC pipeline ensures a stable, cost-effective, and environmentally sound water supply. Whereas the CDC pipeline would cross state lines benefiting 7 states, it would be federally funded. Proposed desalination plants have significant environmental and cost issues, which San Diego would have to bear alone. I ask you to establish a task force, prepare a report, garner support of all the Colorado River Compact states and cities, and finally pass the report on to the federal government for implementation. If we construct this, San Diego will be guaranteed the water that we need to grow and thrive. If we wait for the next prolonged drought, it may be too late. Please act now. Thank you.
Good morning. My name is Angelica Mendoza. I'm here to talk about the homeless shelter placed on Hamacha Road next to Mount Miguel High School and right in front of Avondale Elementary School. I wanted to know how many empty lots and buildings does the San Diego County own? How many places were proposed to put the shelter? And why, out of all of these places, did Nora Vargas decide to put the homeless shelter next to the schools, the daycare centers, and the residential areas? I also wanted to know if she knows that in all of the 7 schools between Avondale, Rancho, Kempton, La Presa, Steam, Kempton, and Mount Miguel High School, there are 4,253 students from the ages 3 to 17 years old. And this is just the students enrolled in. If you count the little leagues for football and baseball, there are more students that are going to be affected. So the Spring Valley community wants to know, does Nora Vargas care about the children at all? We have been trying to meet with you numerous times. We're not against the homeless shelter, we're just against the location. And we also wanted to know, how did they inform the community of Spring Valley? I'm talking about the streets on La Presa, El Kelton, Hamacha, Grand, Bancroft, Blossom Lane, Kempton, Neon, and Leland Street, and so on. Since nobody knew this was happening, and when they did find out, we started to going out and gathering as a community, because we are not against the homeless shelter, but we are against the homeless shelter next to the schools. Another thing, are they going to be hiring more sheriff for the 300 people they're going to be dumping on us? And does the city of Lemon Grove, are they aware of this? Thank you.
Thank you.
Hello, my name is Shirak Sadat Najat. I live in District Number 4. My father passed away in District Number 4 on June 30th, 2023. Approximately 2 weeks after he passed away, I told the person that found the body of my father, which is his brother, that I had found security cameras in the house, hidden active security cameras. And he changed his story about how he found the body of my father, how he entered my father's home, and how many people were present with him. I took this information, I video recorded all of his stories. I took the video recordings to the San Diego Sheriff and the San Diego Police, and both have refused to take a crime report from me. April 10th of this year, I recorded a phone conversation with a Shabir Khan, who's associated with my family. He confessed to the murder of my father and my twin brother for the purpose of inheriting assets of my father. I took the video to the San Diego Sheriff's Department, to the San Diego Sheriff and the San Diego Police and the District Attorney's Office on the 10th floor and the 7th floor. All four have refused me service. I don't know where to turn to. I'm walking around with this video of confession of dual homicide. Granted, one of them is in Cupertino, California, my twin brother. He was found sitting upright on his sofa in front of a television, poisoned to death, and nobody investigated it. Now my father has passed away, and I have a full confession on video, on audio, where the police is not taking me seriously. I have to assume that somebody under the color of law is preventing from these things to move forward. Asking for help from the county, from my District 4 representative.
Thank you, sir. Your time.
Please contact me.
Thank you, sir. Your time's up.
May I leave court documents?
Yes. Go ahead and hand them to the clerk right behind you.
And they'll go to District 4 representative? Okay, thank you very much.
Absolutely, yeah. We will now hear from those that have requested to speak by phone. When it is your turn to speak, you'll be unmuted. You'll hear a recording that will tell you to begin your comments after the beep. Again, I'd like to remind the callers they should mute their TV or live video stream before they begin speaking, and we'll begin with our first caller.
Good afternoon. My name is Diane Grace. Last November, as a parent and grandparent, I joined other parents and grandparents in the county to support Proposition 31, which passed also in November to ban the sale of addictive candy-flavored e-cigarettes. I have appreciated the county's preemptive ban even before this ballot measure. Big Tobacco had spent billions marketing sweet-tasting and sweet-smelling e-cigarettes and vaping devices as adventurous and also as tools for relieving worries and pressures. It's worked out well for Big Tobacco, not so well for kids, resulting in very expensive mental and physical health problems. Many young adults say they picked up e-cigarettes as a way to deal with stress and anxiety, only to realize much later that vaping can make their mental health worse and is addictive. Now, Big Marijuana has done the same thing. Research suggests that highly concentrated THC, often sweet-smelling and tasting, found in marijuana vaping devices is also addictive. When teens try to quit, they feel anxious, stressed, or depressed again as their body experiences nicotine or marijuana withdrawal. I have followed the county's unfortunate idea to add more marijuana businesses to our county. This is a very poor idea that needs to be shelved for now. Thank you for your consideration.
Thank you. We'll go to our next speaker.
Good afternoon, members of the board. My name is Megan Stewart. As mentioned yesterday with the proclamation regarding National Foster Care Month, every child in the county deserves the best possible childhood. With that, the harmful effects of secondhand smoke from traditional tobacco products are well documented, leading to severe respiratory and cardiovascular diseases. However, secondhand marijuana smoke poses equally significant threats to public health. Secondhand tobacco and marijuana aerosol from electronic smoking devices, or ESDs, are also very significant. ESDs, often wrongfully perceived as safer than cigarettes, emit an aerosol that contains nicotine and marijuana as ultrafine particles, volatile organic compounds, and other toxins known to cause cancer and respiratory issues. Research indicates that the particle concentration in ESP aerosol is higher than that of conventional tobacco or marijuana smoke, worsening conditions like asthma. These particles are small enough to penetrate deep into the lungs, causing long-term health impacts. Chemicals such as formaldehyde, benzene, and lead, all identified in ESP aerosol, further underline the health risks associated with secondhand exposure. Notably, particulate matter levels from marijuana smoke are significantly higher than those from tobacco smoke, posing serious health risks to non-smokers, particularly in multi-unit housing where smoke can easily drift between units. Protecting the health of San Diego residents, including developing children, requires proactive measures. I'd like to encourage the board to implement smoke-free policies in all multi-unit housing, explicitly including marijuana and electronic smoking devices. Such policies will ensure that everyone, including vulnerable populations like children, the elderly, and individuals with pre-existing health conditions, can breathe clean, smoke-free air in their own homes. Thank you for your time and commitment to the county.
Thank you. We'll go to our next caller.
Good morning, Board of Supervisors. My name is Becky Rapp. I'm a parent and a public health educator concerned regarding the uptick in marijuana consumption. I'd like to share with you an article published today in NBC7 San Diego titled, "Daily Marijuana Use Outpaces Daily Drinking in the U.S., a new study says." According to an analysis of national survey data, millions of people in the U.S. report using marijuana daily or nearly every day. And those people now outnumber those who say they are daily or nearly daily drinkers of alcohol. Jonathan Calkins, a cannabis policy researcher at Carnegie Mellon University, stated a good 40% of current cannabis users are using it daily or nearly daily, a pattern that is more associated with tobacco use than typical alcohol use. It's undeniable that big marijuana is following in the footsteps of big tobacco, and they're looking to addict them young, and they're succeeding at it. This data cannot be ignored, and it's deeply concerning, as those who are consuming are also driving drugs. Here in San Diego County, marijuana is the #1 drug individuals test positive for when a DUI test is conducted. And people who drive immediately after consuming increase their risk of getting into a crash by 25 to 30%. District Attorney Summer Stephan and City Attorney Mara Elliott are both in agreement that driving under the influence of marijuana is a significant contributor to the uptick in DUI cases. I highly encourage you to reconsider on expanding the marijuana market in our backcountry. Think about those who live and work in those areas and the uptick in DUI cases and how this would significantly affect our residents. Thank you.
Thank you. We'll go to our next speaker.
My name is Kathleen Lippett. Good morning, Board. As an attendee of my 2 local unincorporated planning groups, I'd like to remind the Board of ongoing disenfranchisement of unincorporated residents. County staff points to their efforts to do public outreach, but if outreach doesn't reach true stakeholders, as has happened in unincorporated communities with the VMT and with the Marijuana Equity Program, it should not qualify as community outreach. County staff narrowly define the marijuana social equity stakeholders to get the answers that would support their policy. Those who wanted to become marijuana entrepreneurs, those who wanted to work in the industry, those who hope to benefit from proposed reparations because of marijuana criminalization. Staff's definition of stakeholders needs to be more inclusive, as it is not as all that equitable as currently defined. Parents, families, friends, and others who have become addicted or were victims of drug trafficking, those pressured to use or peddle drugs, those who spent vast sums of money to pay for costly treatment for their loved ones are the real stakeholders. Staff will be using taxpayer money to pay for exorbitant salaries for equity consultants or directors between $78,000 and $95,000 a year. San Diego's #1 largest criminal industry, drug crimes. So it defies common sense that this board majority still supports the predatory marijuana industry that fuels abuse and addiction. Corruption in this industry is so endemic in local marijuana licensing that cities and counties should consider banning people who want licenses from direct contact with government officials who will make those decisions. This board's majority.
Thank you. Your time is up. We'll go to our next speaker.
This is Peggy Walker. Yes, to those who earlier expressed disillusionment over this board's understanding of backcountry needs. For some reason, you're pushing unwanted marijuana commercialization, which promises nothing for families, youth, or for community ambience, health and safety, nor economic value. Reports from market watchers signal that mounting distress in the cannabis market is likely to continue, with major companies shutting down or shrinking. Reports from market watchers show that California reported a $700 million loss in unpaid cannabis taxes. The Medman Company, once an industry leader with stores in 7 states, including one in San Diego, has filed for bankruptcy and seen its worth plummet from $1.5 billion to zero, its stock now worth a penny. As policymakers, you're hopefully aware of industry decline. Good reason not to expand it here. We need only to look to Monterey County as an example of the faltering market and undelivered promises. A Monterey County grand jury reported more than 50 marijuana businesses have closed or filed for bankruptcy, defaulting on $6 million in unpaid taxes. Monterey intended to become a model in pot administration, but failed, and one major contributing factor cited the black market. Statewide incidences of unpaid taxes and bankruptcies prompt questions as to whether this unstable market is worth precious county resources, increased mental health, addiction, homelessness, and youth physical and mental health issues. From all standpoints, the answer is no. Thank you.
Thank you. We'll go to our next caller.
Hello, this is Kelly McCormick. I'm a public health educator focusing on substance use prevention. I would like
Kelly, we can barely hear you, Kelly.
I'll try again.
There we go.
This is Kelly. Oh, good. Thank you. I'm a public health educator focusing on youth substance use prevention. I would like to share comments made earlier this month by Dr. Nora Volkow, director of the Institute on Drug Abuse. Dr. Volkow was interviewed by Medscape Medical News in relation to a study by Oregon Health and Science University showing that adolescent marijuana use has increased 245% nationwide since the year 2000. Dr. Volkow said, quote, "Drug abuse is often driven by what is in front of you," adding that, quote, "nicotine is much harder to get. It is regulated to a much greater extent than cannabis, so fewer teenagers are consuming nicotine than are consuming cannabis," unquote. Local surveys back up this statement. Marijuana is more widely used by teens than tobacco. Both San Diego County and the state ban the sale of flavored tobacco products, yet flavored marijuana vapes and edibles are widely available, even to 18-year-old high school students who possess a medical card. Very easy to get, by the way. Dr. Volkow adds that marijuana use in adolescence and young adulthood is very concerning because of the risk for developing psychosis and schizophrenia, particularly among young males. Those who begin using before age 16 are at the highest risk of developing cannabis use disorder. In fact, one large study found a 17-fold increase among young daily users. If the county is going to allow marijuana storefronts, billboards, and other advertising, it is imperative to understand the consequences for our young people. Thank you.
Thank you. We'll go to our next speaker.
It's truth. Let's continue about the nitwits. Deborah Lynn Barkley, age 67, formerly known as Deborah Netwig, and an attorney who has had her license suspended several times since 1997 for failure to pay fees. Craig Lee Netwig, age 76, arrested April 27, 2020 for a DUI, and yet got a PPP loan on May 5, 2020, totaling $24,203 for 5 employees. Who those other 3 employees are besides his wife are unknown. Craig is the owner of King Lee Technologies, but I'll have to cover that at another meeting. Instead, I want to elaborate on what the county's public safety group's Chuck Westerhide said last year about the abused horses. Quote, we're continuing to work with the owners to get voluntary compliance with the rules and regulations of animal ownership. We tell them what we think is going on. The owner is working to meet the mandates. A lot of the bad conditions have to do with the rain. Horse owners are going to struggle to find a place where there's not mud. We don't want to take people's animals away as much as some activists might like us to, unless there's a life-threatening situation for the animals, end quote. Did the county's inaction last year allow the Netwigs to produce yet another dead horse the next year? The Netwigs own several properties. There's Del Mar, Solana Beach, Cecilio, and the Artesian Road properties. Just 2 of these properties are estimated to be worth over $15 million. You see, the Netwigs have plenty of money to take care of their animals. They just choose not to. On January 24th, Tara's office said, quote, we quickly acted on each occasion dating back to spring of last year. Department of Animal Services investigated and took action, end quote. Tara said all is handled and just fine. Is that true? That same day, who started an investigation into this abused horse situation? District Attorney Summer Steffen and the Animal Cruelty Unit. Who got her office's budget cut by $18 million on May 14th? Summer Steffen. Is that a coincidence? And then the Assistant Director of Animal Services got $45,000 or more a year yesterday.
Thank you. Your time is up. We'll go to our next speaker.
Good afternoon, Board of Supervisors. Ann Riddle here. Because of where I live, I attend 2 county planning groups, one where I live and one where our business is. And people from both of our planning groups participated in the county's listening workshops when you were looking at potentialities for a social equity cannabis program. And I noticed in the press release from last week a description of the program. And I appreciate that, but I think what this misses is what actually happened in the listening workshops. You talked about in the press release some of the items that would be included in this program, but I have to tell you what really was said in that program is much different. You caught it in words, but not in feelings. And again, it is that what people really wanted as reparations are business loans for other businesses, not pot shops. And they wanted job-related assistance, and they wanted continuing education assistance, and they wanted more behavioral health services. They wanted investments in their neighborhoods. They didn't really want more pot shops, but you make it so attractive when it sounds like these are reparations for injustices. May I suggest that the idea of giving people a pot shop is kind of a soft racism? Don't we have something better to offer to our people who have dealt with the justice system? Let's give them an opportunity to finish their education and to have the type of job mentoring that they want. That's what they requested. Thank you for letting me share my experience with the listening.
Thank you. We'll go to our next speaker.
Crazy to be kicked out of a meeting just for speaking at the podium and then have the sheriffs, stuck on me again. I'd be in there, but I had stuff to take care of. But it's interesting because, you're telling me I can't talk to the audience when it's like you don't really get to dictate what free speech is and, be to the arbiter of that. But, as far as these lithium bomb, whatever, just massive projects that are coming forward and the ones that have already been, and with Otay Mesa, it's like, how can you have something burn for 7 days when we've been telling you this for a really long time? That's what happens when you put lithium bombs places or just use them in general. And the fact that this is like, you're going to continue to put these in communities all over the county, it's like, it's really disturbing to think about, because you talk about wanting to like mitigate fire and public health and safety and, you know, all these climate, helping, like pretending to save the climate. But then you do stuff like this and you put people's lives in danger, which with all of the plans to bring any kind of this electrification for electrifying vehicles or trucks or whatever, you're literally setting people up to explode in a bomb. And it's really sad to think that you literally care more about pretending to save the planet than worrying about people's actual safety and their health, because they're toxic to the environment. And it's like, you want to act like you're demonizing gas and oil. Well, you need that just to get your lithium bombs and all of the infrastructure that you want for your pretend save the climate shenanigans. So it's like, if you actually care about people, you should be putting something forward that is going to put an end to these, especially until you figure out and educate yourself on what's really going on. Because it's negligent that you're doing that and putting people in danger like that.
Thank you. Your time is up. And Chairwoman Vargas, that concludes the request for non-agenda public communication this afternoon. We will now call the public speakers for closed session items. We have 7 total requests to speak, 1 individual in person, and 6 requesting to speak by phone. Any members of the public that have requested to speak on this item by phone, please dial into the conference line now with the instructions that were provided to you. We will begin with the in-person speaker as your name is called. Oh, and to note, this will be there will only be 1 minute for closed session speakers. We will begin with the in-person speakers. As your name is called, please come forward and stand against the east wall under the murals until it is your turn to speak. I'd like to invite forward Mark. You'll have 1 minute to address the board. Please begin by stating your name for the record. Not seeing any movement in the chamber, we'll go to the phone callers. And again, you'll have 1 minute. We'll begin with our first caller.
Truth, Casey is about picking a new CAO. So, hey, yo, both those purple and merge shirts have got to go. From April 22nd, 2024, Voice Defending article, quote, the county offered Cindy Chavez the job on March 29th, 2023, the same day Nathan Fletcher resigned from the board. SEIU and UDW helped Fletcher get elected. Fletcher had helped bring their plan to fruition, only to let it completely unravel right as they were close to entrenching the whole project. Richard Browning, the leader of the San Diego and Imperial Counties Labor Council, sent this statement. We thought we had a new county government, but a so-called Democrat is teaming up with the right wing to reinforce the status quo. The new boss is the same as the old boss, Browning wrote, end quote. And then Bridget continued to make an utter dunce out of herself at a UDW rally out front of this building, while the minions cheered her allegedly racist rhetoric. Now the red and purple shirts are suddenly throwing one of their own under the bus with the excuse of the word Ingona directed at Nora. Well, that's not a racist insult like they...
Thank you. Your time is up. Again, 1 minute for closed session public comment.
Wow, 1 minute. Feels like Sandag right now. It's crazy, Nora. You're just getting ready for Friday or what? Yeah, anticipated litigation. It's like, man, that could be so many things because, I mean, you know, the people that are experiencing this fire and having it affect their community, they should be suing you guys for wanting to put this stuff forward. And then, I don't know, like the 5-year-old little girl that was raped that you don't ever want to talk about, that you had to shut me up and kick me out because I was talking to the people about it. Maybe her parents, are going to be suing you guys for, you know, wanting an open border and for calling it xenophobic. Instead of protecting a victim, you protect the predators. That's what always happens. So interesting to see how many people are complicit in the rape of a 5-year-old little girl. 5-year-old. Even Kevin Stevenson thinks that should happen, which is pretty disturbing to think that it's a, like, show. That is standing up for somebody who can't even stand up for themselves. And everybody should be pissed off about it and quit being.
Thank you. Your time is up. We'll go to our next speaker.
Poll bold. When you come out at the end of the session with no reportable actions, that is a political cover-up for what the people have a right to know. The board spent all their time arguing that it's an action we should know about. The board expressed a view on who not to hire that is an action we should know about. The public cannot participate in public political meetings fully if you keep secret. The new CEO should not be a union chief or leader in any political party. Many of them tend to be where they are because they have had certain views impressed upon them. For instance, union people support PLAs, which look at people who don't pay union dues. As one speaker said, it's kind of like the mafia. I would also want a new CEO to look at the law carefully, see what exceptions can be made, and stand up for not following it blindly, as seems to happen too often.
Thank you. Your time is up. We'll go to our next caller.
Consuelo, yeah, 60 seconds. Woohoo! Goes to show you want to silence the people and you don't want to listen to what we have to say. It's refreshing to hear people see, in fact, who Nora is, her true colors. It's disgusting that you guys don't listen to the people. You don't care. You're just doing your job. You all suck. You really do. And Monica, I really hope you help that gentleman. And it's really sad. I don't think you suck, Monica. I really don't. I got love for Monica. I don't know why. I do. I love you. But, yeah, the rest of you, so sad. Very sad.
Thank you. And Chairwoman Vargas, that concludes public comment on this item. And on behalf of Chairwoman Vargas, this meeting is adjourned. The board will now recess into closed session to continue consideration of those matters listed under item 28 on yesterday's agenda and item 1 on the in-home supportive services public authority on yesterday's agenda. If there are any reportable actions, they will be reported out after the conclusion of session today.